Chapter 248. The Genius Nanny in the City. Chapter 248. Wushuang's Past. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Chapter 248. Wushuang's Past. The few of them stood at the entrance of the Imperial Wind Pavilion a day later. Sob, sob, sob. Ning Rulan looked at Wushuang with tears in her eyes. Brother Wushuang, can you come back to Luoyang with us? I can't bear to leave you. Ning Ziyuan stood aside, having a headache over his daughter. The father and daughter planned to go back after staying at the Imperial Wind Pavilion for a night. After all, it was impossible for them to stay there forever. Moreover, they had things to deal with in Luoyang. Yi Chen watched all of this with interest. Regarding the matter of Ning Rulan liking Wushuang, he had already seen it. To be honest, he quite appreciated Ning Rulan's straightforward character, but in the end, it still depended on Wushuang's own choice. However, Wushuang stood there quietly. There was no expression on his face as he rejected Ning Rulan's request with silence. Now that he had found Yi Chen, how could he leave? Su Yuwei, who was standing aside, rubbed her chest that was throbbing. Pride filled her eyes when she looked at Ning Rulan. However, she clenched her teeth when she recalled what happened yesterday. She thought it would be a piece of cake for her to deal with an 18-year-old girl since she was older and stronger. Never had she thought that Ning Rulan would be an ancient martial artist. Not only did Ning Rulan torture her, but she could not stop pinching her chest, causing her pain for the entire night. Ning Rulan was a little annoyed seeing that Wushuang said nothing. She said with her hands on her hips, Brother Wushuang, it's fine if you don't want to go back with us. However, you can't flirt around when I'm not around. Shock flashed through Wushuang's handsome face. And in B-tip, please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading, SP, when have I ever flirted? Moreover, who are you to control me? You're so handsome. There must be shameless women who seduce you shamelessly. You must learn to protect yourself. Ning Rulan glanced at Su Yuwei as she spoke to this point. What are you talking about? Su Yuwei exploded. How could she not understand that Ning Rulan was implying something about her? All right. Seeing that the two were about to start arguing again, Ning Ziyuan hurriedly interrupted. He then looked at Wushuang with a complicated expression. If you're free, you can come to Luoyang. The Ning family will always welcome you. The young man in front of him was someone he thought highly of, and he even had the intention of marrying his daughter to him. However, after interacting with him for the past few days, he could tell that this young man was the kind of person who only cared about the Tao and did not understand the relationship between a man and a woman. It could be said that he was a sword maniac. Wushuang nodded slightly, expressing his stance. Mr. Yi, thank you for your hospitality. It's time for us to leave. Ning Ziyuan clasped his fists at Yi Chen. Yi Chen smiled faintly. You're too kind, Master Ning. I should be the one thanking you. If the Ning clan has any difficulties in the future, I, Yi Chen, will definitely help if I can. Not only had Wushuang taken the Ning family's treasure, the great Thunder Sword, but he had also stolen their only daughter's heart. Therefore, Yi Chen was rather grateful to the Ning family. Ning Ziyuan nodded and led Ning Rulan to the BMW at the entrance. Ning Rulan turned her head and said reluctantly, Brother Wushuang, you must visit me when you're free. She got into the car after saying that, and the car drove away. Su Yuwei turned around and walked into the Imperial Wind Pavilion like a winner. She was indescribably happy. Yi Chen looked at Wushuang and said while smiling, Tell me, who do you like? I'll be your matchmaker. Brother, please don't make fun of me. A hint of bitterness appeared on Wushuang's cold face when she heard that. I've never thought about that. I just want to stay by your side and never leave you. You can get a girlfriend to stay by my side too. Yi Chen was in between tears and laughter. He looked at Wushuang closely and was actually a little jealous. I wonder what exactly you've been through to have such a beautiful face. It's fortunate that you didn't become a movie actor. Otherwise, you'd be able to kill Kai Shukuan and Lu Han within seconds. Let's go. Tell me what you've been through. Yi Chen led him into the Imperial Wind Pavilion as he spoke. The duo walked around the Imperial Wind Pavilion's garden side by side. When did you come to Earth? Yi Chen asked. Wu Shuang nodded lightly. 3 months ago, I encountered a spatial tear when you extracted my sword spirit and sent me to the lower realm. I lost consciousness after that. When I woke up, I found myself lying at the foot of Mount Tai. I even had an extra body out of nowhere. 3 months ago? Yi Chen thought to himself and realized that Wu Shuang had traveled to Earth at about the same time. They were only 3 to 4 days apart. Wu Shuang said, I was severely injured back then. A sloppy old Taoist priest who was passing by saved me. He healed me and wanted to take me in as his disciple, but I didn't agree. A sloppy old Taoist priest? Stunned, Yi Chen asked, where's he? Note: please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading. He's dead. Wu Shuang said coldly as if he did not care. However, a glint of sadness flashed deep in his cold eyes. When I went to Wudong's sect to challenge the Wudong sect leader for the Taiji sword, I was ambushed by an expert on my way down the mountain. The opponent was very powerful. He severely injured me with a single move. He saved me at the critical moment. Was he killed by the person who ambushed you? Yi Chen asked in his deep voice. No. Wu Shuang shook his head lightly. He was poisoned to death. He was heavily poisoned before that, so he couldn't fight. Otherwise, the poison would spread faster. That was why he wanted to take me in as his disciple, so that he could pass on his legacy. Wu Shuang lifted his eyes to look at the sky as he spoke to this point. The poison attacked his heart to save me. I promised to mourn for him for 3 months. 3 months later, I found out that he was from the Su family of Mount Wangu. The poison in his body was caused by the Su family in the early years. Therefore, I carried his coffin to Mount Wangu to demand an explanation. If Yi Chen was Wu Shuang's only family in this world, then the old Taoist priest was considered half a family. After all, the old Taoist priest was not related to him, but he treated him sincerely. He even risked his life to save him. That was the reason why he was willing to carry the old Taoist priest's coffin and kill his way into Mount Wangu with his sword to destroy the 4 families. Although Wu Shuang was cold, at least he knew how to repay kindness. What a pity! Yi Chen sighed. If he had met Wu Shuang earlier, he might have been able to resolve the speed in the old Taoist priest. He would not have died from the poison. At that moment, Lin Tai walked over in a hurry. He looked rather anxious. My lord, something has happened. The Martial Alliance has issued a kill order for you. A kill order? Yi Chen frowned. Standing aside, Wu Shuang's expression turned cold. Lin Tai took a deep breath in and said, The Martial Alliance accused you of killing 5 of their masters. They said that you're cruel and heartless, so they want you to give them an explanation? Interesting. Yi Chen smiled instead of being mad. A mocking smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. I haven't even asked them for an explanation, but they're accusing me instead. How interesting. P.S. Chapter 1. Chapter 249. The Genius Nanny in the City. Chapter 249. Martial Alliance Kill Order. Urban Romance. Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Chapter 249. Martial Alliance Kill Order. Yi Chen said, after noticing that Lin Tai was hesitating to speak. Yi Chen said while raising his brows, anything else? Lin Tai forced a smile. The Martial Alliance's kill order has gathered all of the ancient martial artists in China to kill you. Moreover, the reward is a breakthrough pill. Breakthrough pill? What's that? Yi Chen asked. Lin Tai shook his head. I've no idea what it is exactly, but I heard that it's the Martial Alliance's secret medicinal pill. It's specially made for ancient martial artists to break through. His expression turned rather grim as he spoke to this point. My lord, what should we do now? As the name suggested, the Martial Alliance was an alliance of ancient martial artists. It was above all ancient martial artists. There were many experts in it, unlike wealthy families like the Su family. Although his lord was powerful, how could he fight a giant like the Su family? Brother, why don't we get Wushuang to go there with his sword? I'll definitely destroy the martial alliance. Standing aside, Yi Wushuang's eyes were cold. Before this, he was the sword in Yi Chen's hand. Now, he was Yi Chen's brother. No matter what, he would not allow anyone to provoke Yi Chen. Don't worry about it. Yi Chen squinted as killing intent flashed through his eyes. I'd like to see how exactly they're going to kill me. Mad Southern Yi is ruthless. He killed 5 of our martial alliance's masters. What he's doing is arrogant. He's openly looking down on our martial alliance's position in the ancient martial world and the Iron Law. Today, Mad Southern Ye's #1 title on the Heaven leaderboard is revoked. At the same time, I'm issuing a kill order. The Martial Alliance will reward anyone who kills Mad Southern Yi with 1 pill. Reminder: please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. Recommended reading. At the same time, he'll be appointed as the Martial Alliance's deputy chief. As the Martial Alliance's kill order was announced, the entire ancient martial world in China was in an uproar. Nobody expected the Martial Alliance to issue a kill order for Yi Chen. One of them was a giant that ruled over all ancient martial artists, while the other was #1 on the Heaven leaderboard. Theoretically, both of them would mind their own business. However, they had fallen out with each other. Without a doubt, this was like a raging wave that completely swept through the entire ancient martial arts world of China. Everyone was so shocked that they were in disbelief. Apart from the shock, Yi. In order to deal with Mad Southern Yi, the Martial Alliance had put in so much effort and was willing to take out the few breakthrough pills. The so-called Zong breakthrough pill was an elixir concocted by the Martial Alliance. To all ancient martial art practitioners, it was no different from a magical elixir. The effect of such an elixir was that it could allow any ancient martial art practitioner below the level of a grandmaster to immediately break through to become a grandmaster after consuming it. Woo. Tian 1 although woo, comma, woo, yi woo. If an ancient martial artist at the peak of the inborn stage consumed it, he might even have the chance to become a martial venerable. Of course, this was only a hope. After all, there had not been a martial venerable in China for 100 years. However, even a trace of hope was enough to make everyone go crazy, especially those martial Dao masters who had been stuck at the advanced stage of the Xiantian realm. They didn't have much time left, so how could they sit back and watch their time come? Even though Yi Chen was the #1 in China and had powerful abilities, he could not stop their madness. As the saying went, the timid would starve to death, and the bold would die from overeating. All of a sudden, the entire ancient martial arts world of China was like a sea with a gust of wind. The seawater looked calm, but in reality, there were surging undercurrents. In a Taoist temple in the depths of the 100,000 mountains, an old Taoist was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Suddenly, a little Taoist boy walked in quickly and whispered something into his ear. The old Taoist's eyes suddenly opened, and they were as sharp as lightning. Ancestor-breaking pill? Martial Alliance actually has something like that? I must get it. I've been stuck in the late Khanate stage for more than 20 years, and I'm over 90 now. If I don't break through soon, I won't be able to escape death when my time comes. When he said this, his whole body was trembling. He was trembling with excitement. Mad Southern Yi, you're very powerful. If it were any other time, I wouldn't want to be your enemy no matter what. However, I can't do that now. Who asked you to offend the Martial Alliance? Who asked me to have the hope of breaking through if I kill you? In a magnificent temple in the Tibetan area, 2 lamas dressed in yellow kasayas were sitting on prayer mat. One of them was an old lama in his 80s, while the other was a young lama in his 30s. The young lama looked bitter. Rinpoche, are you sure you want to go? Serene, after I leave, you will inherit the Miin temple. The old Lama was senile and his eyes were cloudy. I'll either die in mad southern Ye's hands or comprehend the innate stage and extend my lifespan by another 100 years. With that, the old Lama walked out of the temple with his staff in hand. Scenes like this were happening all over the country at almost the same time. In the end, they converged into a powerful undercurrent that attacked Beijing. Inside the secret chamber of the Imperial Wind Pavilion. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. A red spear appeared before Yi Chen. He took a closer look and realized that it was Bai Zhenyuan's half-spiritual weapon. Although this item is not a magic artifact, it is not inferior. In addition, it was obtained from the tailbone of a demon snake. It can be broken down into materials to forge other magic artifacts. Why don't I refine a magic tool for self-defense for Meng Meng? It can also be a way to protect her. Thinking of this, Yi Chen waved his sleeve, and countless refining materials floated before him. He spat true essence fire out of his mouth. The true essence fire wrapped around the red spear and began to melt it slowly. If Bai Zhenyuan was still alive, he would have been enraged to see the half-spiritual weapon that he refined painstakingly disintegrated just like that. Soon, the spear was completely disintegrated into a pool of red liquid that floated in the air. Yi Chen waved his arm, and another portion of the refining materials leaped into the air. They were melted into liquid under the true fire. Fuse. Yi Chen performed hand seals with both hands and performed hand seals on the liquid that floated in the air. The liquid melted into a ball at that moment as if it was boiling. It didn't take long for it to condense into a hoop. It looked a little like a hula hoop, but it was slightly smaller than a hula hoop. Its entire body shone with a silver metallic luster. Since it's a defensive Dharma treasure, it naturally needs to be inscribed with a defensive formation. Apart from protecting itself, it can also trap and injure people. It can also be like a Dharma treasure that can change its size at will. That's why it needs a Dharma treasure. Yi Chen pondered for a while rubbing his chin. He extended his arm again and carved dense formations on the silver circle. The formations integrated into the silver circle like wriggling runes. Finally, it took shape. Half an hour later, Yi Chen waved his hand and the silver hoop landed in his hand. It shone with a dazzling glow while faintly emitting spiritual energy. I've used up all my materials, but it's only a mid-grade magic tool. At the end of the day, I still don't have enough spiritual energy. Yi Chen shook his head lightly and said in his deep voice, I'll call you Heaven and Earth Ring from now on. After saying that, he put away the universe ring and walked out, intending to give his daughter a surprise. P.S. Chapter 2. Chapter 250. The Genius Stay-at-Home Dad in the City. Chapter 250. The Magical Use of the Heaven and Earth Hoop. Urban Romance CMS. Add a bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 250. The Magical Use of the Heaven and Earth Hoop in the Living Room. There was a lot of food placed before Meng Meng at the moment. Ning Rulan had bought them earlier. Both of them were foodies, so it was only natural that they appreciated each other. However, Ning Rulan was the kind of person who did not gain weight by eating. On the other hand, the little girl gained weight no matter how much she ate. Su Yuhan had been holding a grudge against Yi Chen. After Ning Rulan left, the little girl was a little reluctant at first. Then, she smiled happily because nobody was fighting with her for food anymore. Yi Wushuang sat aside quietly. There was a faint smile in his eyes when he looked at the little girl. She was his eldest brother's daughter, his only bloodline. If his eldest brother was still in the immortal world, she would be the Heavenly Emperor's daughter, the daughter of an immortal. She would inherit his throne in the future and become a powerful empress who ruled over the world. Uncle Wushuang, do you want cake? The little girl seemed to be a little embarrassed to see him staring at her. She took a box of cake from the table and gave it to him after some hesitation. Yi Wushuang shook his head lightly, his gaze becoming gentler. The little girl looked at him while blinking. Uncle Wushuang, why don't you like to talk and smile? My teacher told me to smile more. A smile will make you look 10 years younger. Yi Wushuang was stunned for a moment. A smile appeared on his cold, handsome face, but it was not obvious. He was a proud person who was not good with words. He would only cooperate with Meng Meng. If it were someone else, he would treat them coldly. At that moment, Yi Chen walked out of the room. Daddy, Uncle Wushuang is smiling. I'm treating him to cake, but he doesn't want it. The little girl ran over without even wiping her mouth. Yi Chen stretched his arm out and wiped her mouth. He said, "Don't eat so much. Look at how fat you are. Your mommy will scold me for spoiling you if she sees this." "But it's really delicious," the little girl mumbled. Yi Chen could not help but laugh. He secretly made up his mind to refine a weight loss pill for her, the kind that would not make her fat even if she ate it. Subsequently, a silver circle appeared on his hand. It was approximately the size of a palm. "Dad, what is this?" The little fellow's eyes immediately widened. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Yi Chen thought about it and said, "This is a toy that Daddy gave you. It's for self-defense. Do you like it?" Meng Meng likes it. The little fellow's eyes lit up, and he eagerly reached out to take it. He sized it up, and his eyes were filled with joy. Yi Chen grabbed her hand and cut her finger gently. "Daddy, it hurts." The little guy took a deep breath. "Hold on." Yi Chen comforted her and dripped her blood on the heaven and earth ring. The blood disappeared within the blink of an eye. "Now Daddy will teach you how to use it." Yi Chen picked up the heaven and earth hoop and demonstrated. "Enlarge." His voice fell. The universe ring instantly doubled in size. Bigger. The Qiankuan ring became like a pot lid. Shrink. Smaller. As soon as Yi Chen was done speaking, the heaven and earth ring shrunk from the size of a pot lid to the size of a palm. The little girl was dazzled. "Daddy, it's so magical." "It's magical, isn't it?" Yi Chen chuckled softly. "Try it now." The little girl could not stop nodding. She expanded and shrunk again, smiling happily. "Daddy, is this little Neza's hoop?" "I guess so." Yi Chen was stunned at first, then he said while smiling, "This is for you to protect yourself. You must always wear it on your hand. If you encounter bad guys, toss it out to fight them." "Yes, yes." The little girl smiled sweetly. At that moment, the Patriarch of Hell walked in while shaking his head. The little girl's eyes lit up. She took off the heaven and earth hoop and tossed it at the Patriarch directly. The heaven and earth hoop grew in the wind and landed on the Patriarch's head accurately. The Patriarch of Hell was dumbstruck. "What's going on?" Before he could react, he heard the little girl shout, "Shrink!" The Patriarch felt the metal hoop on him shrink all of a sudden. He rolled his eyes and could not catch his breath. Magic tool. The Patriarch snapped back to his senses. He wanted to cry but had no tears. "MMP. Who did I offend? You can't bully me like that." Seeing that the heaven and earth hoop was shrinking, the Patriarch spoke through voice transmission immediately. "Master, please spare me. I shouldn't have encouraged Ning Rulan to pinch your sister-in-law's chest." He thought Yi Chen had taught him a lesson with a magic tool because he had found out what he had done earlier. Yi Wushuang, who was standing aside, sensed the divine consciousness fluctuation as soon as he spoke through voice transmission. He could not help but look at the Patriarch. "All right." Yi Chen caressed the little girl's face. The little girl stuck her tongue out and extended her arm to wave at the Patriarch. The heaven and earth hoop flew back to her hand. "Don't play with it in the future. Do you hear me?" Yi Chen reminded with a straight face. He was really afraid that the little girl would use it on ordinary people. Tip: please rest your eyes when you read for a long time. Recommended reading. The little girl loved it. Yes, yes. I understand. After regaining his freedom, the Patriarch realized that Wushuang could not stop staring at him. He rolled his eyes angrily. "Why are you looking at a pretty boy?" Yi Wuxiang looked away coldly and looked at Yi Chen. Clearly, he realized that the Patriarch of Hell was not as simple as a dog. Yi Chen could only tell him about the Patriarch's situation through voice transmission. Yi Wuxiang came to a realization. At that moment, Su Yuhan walked in with Su Yue. She said while smiling, "Yi Chen, Yue said that she's not feeling well. I want to take her to the hospital." Yi Chen could not help but look at Su Yue. Yi Chen could not help but look at Su Yue. "Are you sick? Let me take a look at you." "And no need." Su Yue's pretty face blushed and she rejected immediately. Her chest was hurting from Ning Rulan's pinch until now. Even though she knew that Yi Chen had medical skills, it was impossible for her to let him take a look. After all, it was a sensitive position. Su Yuhan said after returning to her room to change, "Then, we'll go to the hospital. We'll be back soon. We'll go to the market to buy some groceries on our way back and cook." "Wait." Yi Chen suddenly stopped her and said, "Let Wuxiang go with you guys. Otherwise I'll be worried." Now that the Martial Alliance had issued a kill order on him, Su Yuhan did not have any cultivation base at all. He was worried about her going out alone. Su Yuhan nodded and led Yi Wuxiang out. Su Yue, on the other hand, became nervous. She blushed and did not dare to look at Yi Wuxiang. After they left, Yi Chen played with his daughter in the house for a while, and taught her how to use the heaven and earth ring. Lin Tai walked in quickly. "My lord, Yang Junlin is here. He wants to see you." "Why is he here?" Yi Chen was stunned, but he said anyway, "Let him in." Then he said to the little girl, "My good daughter, you and Buttface go outside to play for a while. Daddy wants to meet a guest." Soon, Lin Tai led someone in. It was Yang Junlin, but there was an old man in a gray robe behind him. P.S. Chapter 3. Chapter 251. The Genius Stay-at-Home Dad in the City. Chapter 251. Yang Junlin visits City Romance. Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Chapter 251. Yang Junlin's visit. Yang Junlin was still wearing the purple robe he wore last time. His aura was hidden, but the gray-robed old man behind him looked arrogant. There was coldness between his brows. After Lin Tai brewed tea for the two of them and left, Yang Junlin smiled apologetically. "I came to disturb you, Supreme Yi. Please forgive me." "Don't worry about it. Who's this?" Yi Chen shook his head lightly and looked at the gray-robed old man next to him. He could sense that the old man had a martial Dao master cultivation base, but he seemed to be quite hostile toward him. Yang Junlin said, "This is Elder Sun from the Martial Alliance." Elder Sun scoffed upon hearing that. He looked very arrogant. "The Martial Alliance?" Yi Chen frowned and said to Yang Junlin wryly, "Brother Yang, you must have heard about what happened between me and the Martial Alliance, but you brought an elder from the Martial Alliance to see me today," Yang Junlin said solemnly. "I found out about the grudge between Supremacy Yi and the Martial Alliance. That's why I took the liberty to bring Elder Sun here. I want to be a mediator and resolve the grudge between Supremacy Yi and the Martial Alliance." "Resolve?" Yi Chen chuckled softly. "You've already issued a kill order on me. Why are you here to resolve it now?" Yang Junlin could not help but look at Elder Sun next to him. "Elder Sun, tell him. The government doesn't want to see this happen either. In short, it's best to resolve this." Elder Sun got up and looked directly at Yi Chen. He said while smirking, "You've crossed the line by killing 5 masters from my Martial Alliance, including Elder Feng. It's not impossible to resolve this as long as you cripple your cultivation base." As soon as he said that. Note: please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. Yang Junlin's expression changed drastically. Yang Junlin's expression changed drastically. Elder Sun, you. Never had he thought that the Martial Alliance's request would be so outrageous. To an ancient martial artist, cultivation base was more important than their life. Clearly, the Martial Alliance did not want to resolve this. "You want me to cripple my cultivation base?" Yi Chen laughed. Elder Sun placed his hands behind his back and said condescendingly, "That's right. Destroy your own cultivation. Mad Southern Yi, I admit that you're very powerful as the number one on the Heaven leaderboard. However, don't think that the Martial Alliance can't do anything to you. If you're smart, destroy your own cultivation now and follow me back to the Martial Alliance to be judged." "Elder son, that's not what you said to me before we came." Yang Junlin's expression darkened. He was ordered by number one to mediate the conflict between the Martial Alliance and Yi Chen. Never had he thought that elder son, who had been rather nice to him earlier, would change his mind after seeing Yi Chen. He would make such an outrageous request. Was he looking down on Yang Junlin? Elder son smirked. "I did think about resolving the grudge between us earlier, but that was under the premise that Mad Southern Yi had a good attitude. Now my Martial Alliance is regretting it." Yang Junlin flew into a rage. Yi Chen waved his hand to stop him. He said to elder son Riley, "You've told me your Martial Alliance's request. Isn't it my turn to make a request now?" "How dare you make a request?" Elder son thought he heard it wrong. He said while snickering, "Mad Southern Yi, I'm warning you to know your place. Do you know that all the powerhouses in China will be your enemy as soon as the Martial Alliance's kill order is released?" Yi Chen did not comment. He said while squinting, "I think you're mistaken. I'm not the one who should be afraid, it's the Martial Alliance." "My Martial Alliance is afraid? What a joke." Elder son laughed out of rage. Yi Chen said expressionlessly, "My request is simple. If you want me to let the Martial Alliance go, get your chief to kneel and apologize to me." "You're so arrogant, brat." Elder son was shaking from rage. "Great, very great. If that's the case, there's nothing more to talk about between us. You're seeking death." He flung his sleeve in an attempt to leave after saying that. "Wait," Yi Chen said in a timely manner. Elder son turned his head and said while smirking, "What? Do you regret it?" "I don't want a dog to stand and talk to me." Yi Chen shook his head lightly and said coldly, "Kneel." As soon as he said that, an extremely powerful pressure exploded from his body. Under this pressure, Yang Junlin and Elder Son's expressions changed. Especially Elder Son, he felt an incomparably terrifying pressure pressing down on him like a mountain, causing him to kneel on the ground with a thud. "Yi Chen, you're courting death." Elder Son looked at Yi Chen with a face full of resentment. He was terrified. It was his first time experiencing how terrifying Yi Chen was. He did not expect Yi Chen to be able to suppress him with just his aura. Yang Junlin, who was standing aside, was also shocked because he felt like he could not resist Yi Chen's pressure. He said after some hesitation, "Venerable Yi, don't be rash. The government, Brother Yang, don't use the government to pressure me." Yi Chen interrupted him, and glared coldly at Elder Son who was kneeling on the ground. "It seems like Feng Kuai didn't deliver my message. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. What are you trying to do?" There was fear in Elder Son's eyes. Yi Chen flicked his finger and a golden flame shot into his body. "I've prepared a big gift for your Martial Alliance chief. Please tell him that I, Yi Chen, will come to your Martial Alliance mountain gate with my sword in 2 days. I'll destroy the Martial Alliance." As soon as he was done speaking, Elder Son felt that he could move again. Elder Son felt that he could move again. He glared at Yi Chen with a malicious expression. "What did you do to me? Get lost." Yi Chen waved his sleeve, and Elder Son felt energy coming at him. His expression changed as he ran toward the door. He said while running, "Yi Chen, I guarantee that you'll regret this." "Thank you, Venerable Yi." Yang Junlin got up and clasped his fists at Yi Chen in all seriousness. He knew that Yi Chen had the ability to kill Elder Son earlier. The reason why he did not do anything was purely to save face for him. "Don't worry about it. Brother Yang meant well." Yi Chen shook his head lightly and said with a scoff, "However, the Martial Alliance thinks too highly of themselves. I can't believe they sent someone to get me to cripple my cultivation base. Venerable Yi, there's something that I'm not sure if I should say. Yang Junlin sighed and looked hesitant. Yi Chen nodded and said, Go ahead. You're no match for the martial alliance. Yang Junlin suddenly said something very incisive. Why? Yi Chen looked calm. Yang Junlin took a good look at him and said, Although you're number 1 on the heaven leaderboard and your combat strength is on par with a half-step martial venerable, you're still no match for the martial alliance. Have you ever thought about how the martial alliance is above all ancient martial artists? Have you ever thought that the martial alliance's foundation isn't as simple as it looks since they're able to get the breakthrough pill? Yi Chen smiled and said nothing. He knew how powerful the martial alliance was. However, was he someone to be messed with? Yang Junlin took a deep breath in and said, Many people don't know that the martial alliance has a big secret. P.S. Chapter 4. Chapter 252. Evil Stay-at-Home Dad in the City. Chapter 252. The Secret of the Martial Alliance, Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 252. The Martial Alliance's Secret. Yi Chen could not help but look at him. Big secret? Not bad. Yang Junlin nodded and said, The Martial Alliance was founded 600 years ago during the Wanli era. It hasn't fallen for 600 years and has always been prosperous because it's a subsidiary force of Shang Santian in the secular world. You mean Shang Santian's lackey? Yi Chen said while smiling. Yang Junlin looked shocked, but he admitted it anyway. Throughout the past 600 years, the martial alliance has gone through the change of dynasties. There have been a few crises of annihilation. However, as soon as the crisis appeared, it was resolved. Did Shang Santian attack? Yi Chen asked. Yang Junlin nodded lightly. That's right. If you destroy the martial alliance, you'll definitely attract the people from Shang Santian. That's why I said you're no match for the martial alliance. That's why the government doesn't want to see that. To him, although Yi Chen was powerful, he could only dominate the secular world at most. However, he was far from enough to face people from Shang Santian. No one knew how terrifying Shang Santian was better than him. Yi Chen was non-committal. To put it bluntly, the upper 3 heavens was a group of even more powerful ancient martial arts practitioners. If he was also an ancient martial arts practitioner, perhaps he would be wary. However, he was a cultivator. There was nothing that could not be destroyed by a single sword strike. Yang Junlin spoke again. Also, the current chief of the martial alliance, Sikong Ao, ranked number 1 on the Heaven leaderboard in China 50 years ago. The Heaven leaderboard only counts ancient martial artists below 60 years old. Once they're over 60 years old, they'll be automatically removed from the leaderboard. And this Sikong Ao disappeared from the Heaven leaderboard after he turned 60? Yi Chen asked with interest. He finally understood why the age of the people on the Heaven roll was not very old, and why it did not change once every 20 years. It turned out that there was such a big secret hidden within. Yes. Yang Junlin nodded slightly. Supreme Yi should understand now, right? The Heaven list was not as simple as it looked. It might seem like there were only 100 people on it, but in reality, it had been 50 years. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Countless people have been on the list. After these people left the list, some died, some went into seclusion, and their strength became even more terrifying than before. He paused for a moment before he continued. Meanwhile, Yan Nanfei, Li Yunxiao, and I are considered as powerhouses of the younger generation at most. There are many hidden old monsters behind us. So, do you think there's a martial Dao venerable among these people? Yi Chen suddenly asked. He was more concerned about that. Yang Junlin was stunned, then he shook his head and said, I don't think so. However, even if no one has broken through to martial venerable, I believe that someone is definitely not far from it. Although they are still martial Tao masters, they are not people we can compare with. Yi Chen smiled, understanding what he meant. It was like 2 gas canisters of the same size. One of them was filled to the brim, while the other one was clearly full. However, it did not increase the pressure, allowing it to store more gas. In this way, although they were both gas canisters, once they were detonated, the power would naturally be different. At the same time, on Hanjing Street, Su Yuhan and Su Yuwei walked on the road while carrying the groceries. Yi Wushuang was half a step behind them. He smiled coldly and said nothing. With his handsome looks, the women who passed by could not help but look at him. There were even women who took the initiative to walk over to ask for his contact number or invite him to dinner. However, he rejected all of them coldly. Su Yuwei was secretly upset to see that. Upon seeing that, Su Yuhan leaned closer to her and asked softly, "Have you really fallen for Wushuang? Sister, didn't you say that he's already 25 years old and it's time for him to consider his feelings?" Su Yuwei's pretty face blushed, and her voice was as soft as a mosquito. She turned her head to look at Yi Wushuang behind her by instinct after speaking. She was relieved to see that he was looking straight ahead as if he did not hear her. "That's rare." Su Yuhan clicked her tongue in wonder. "I thought that your future boyfriend would either be from a wealthy family or a soldier in the military. I can't believe you've changed." "Sister, you're teasing me again." Su Yuwei stamped her feet. Just as she was about to say something, she heard a commotion in front of her. A woman with disheveled hair ran over, and behind her were more than a dozen fierce men. "Help! Help!" The lady was approximately 30 years old. She screamed as she ran and ran towards Su Yuhan and the rest in a panic. There was a smirk flickering on her seemingly panicked face. Just when she was about to get close to Su Yuhan and the rest, a white silhouette blocked her way. "You'll die if you take another step. Save me, I beg you." The woman's face was full of panic. Upon seeing that, Su Yuhan and Su Yuwei, who were behind Yi Wushuang, walked out by instinct. Su Yuhan could not help but ask, May I know why they're chasing you?" "My ex-husband ran away from gambling debts, so they're chasing me to pay him back. They even said that they're going to sell me to Thailand to be a prostitute." The lady knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Su Yuhan. "Please, save me. Save me." At the same time, the over 10 hunks in the distance had caught up to them. "Wushuang, why don't you save her?" Su Yuhan looked like she could not bear to see that. Yi Wushuang's expression was cold. "Sister-in-law, let's not be nosy." "Hey, can you not be so heartless?" Su Yuwei glared at him angrily, feeling a little lost. Note: please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. "Recommended reading," Wang said. "Do you still have any sympathy?" "Sympathy? What's that?" Yi Wushuang's expression was cold. "I was wrong about you. I can't believe I like someone like you." Su Yuwei was furious. She pushed him away angrily and walked to the lady kneeling on the ground. "Sister, don't be afraid. Stand behind us. They won't dare to touch you." After the 10 hunks caught up, a tanned hunk walked out from behind. "Little B***tch, this is the 4C's gang's business. It's best that you stay out of it. I'm going to interfere." "What can you do about it?" Su Yuwei reached out to help the lady on the ground since Yi Wushuang was there. Just when her hand was about to touch the woman on the ground, the woman sneered and a dagger appeared in her hand. She suddenly leaped up and aimed at Su Yuhan, who was behind Su Yuwei. All of a sudden, Su Yuwei was so frightened that she fell to the ground. Su Yuhan was also stunned. She did not expect the weak and pitiful girl to suddenly kill someone. Die, die. Seeing that Su Yuhan was frozen in fear, the lady's face was filled with ferocity. Right at this moment, she suddenly felt a bone-piercing coldness coming from behind her, and she instinctively turned around to look. What welcomed her was the edge of a sword. Poochie! A large head rolled on the ground for more than 10 meters. The woman's eyes widened in disbelief. Up until the moment of her death, She had never imagined that the incredibly handsome young man who looked like a student was actually an expert. Just one strike. She was dead. This sudden scene scared the surrounding people so much that they temporarily forgot to speak. One by one, they opened their eyes wide, and their eyes were filled with terror. Hot blood splashed on Su Yue's face. Yi Wuxiang walked to Su Yuhan quickly. There was a hint of nervousness on his cold expression. "Sister-in-law, are you all right?" To him, the sword earlier was not worth mentioning, and Su Yuhan's safety was the most important thing. P.S. Chapter 5. That's the end of today's update. Thank you for your support. Please give me recommendation votes and monthly vote. Chapter 253. Murder, Murder. As Yi Wuxiang severed the head of the lady who wanted to assassinate Su Yuhan, the passers-by around were stunned for a moment before exclamations of fear broke out one after another. Even the dozen or so hunks who were chasing the lady earlier were shocked. They scattered like bees, afraid that they would end up like the lady. Su Yuhan snapped back to her senses and looked at the head on the ground. Her pretty face was a little pale. "I am fine." Until now, she was still in shock. She thought that the lady was in trouble and they wanted to save her. Never had she thought that the lady would suddenly kill someone. Moreover, the target was her. Phew! Su Yuhan heaved a sigh of relief as she thought to this point. She looked at Yi Wuxiang gratefully. "Thank you so much, Wuxiang." If Yi Wuxiang had not killed her in time earlier, she would have been hurt. That was close. "Don't worry, sister-in-law. No one can hurt you with me here." Yi Wuxiang's expression was cold as determination flashed through his eyes. Su Yuhan nodded lightly and only noticed Su Yue, who was on the ground. She was stunned to see Su Yue sitting on the ground without a care for her image. She was covering the blood on her face. "Wei Wei, are you all right?" Su Yue walked over and helped her up immediately. Sob, sob, sob. Su Yue threw herself into Su Yue's embrace and cried while shaking. "Sister, I was scared to death just now. I almost thought you, all right, it's okay now." Su Yuhan comforted her. When she heard the siren of a police car in the distance, she said immediately, "Let's go, let's go." The group of them did not even bother to pick up the food that fell on the ground. They left the scene in a hurry. Su Yue only calmed down now. Her eyes were slightly red as she said guiltily, "Sister, it's all my fault. If I hadn't been a busybody, this wouldn't have happened." "I didn't expect that either." Su Yuhan patted her chest and looked at Yi Wuxiang, who was next to her. "Wuxiang, did you know that she was going to kill me?" She was not dumb, so she guessed the nature of the matter immediately. "Killing intent." Jian Wuxiang stopped walking and said calmly, "I sensed killing intent on that lady." Any sword cultivator's heart would be extremely ethereal and even sensitive. They would be more sensitive to auras than anyone else. He sensed the woman's murderous intent the moment she appeared, which was why he did not let Su Yuhan and Su Yue meddle in their business, but Su Yue did not listen. At this point, Yi Wuxiang glanced at Su Yue coldly. Although he did not say a word, the meaning behind his words was self-evident. Su Yue lowered her head aggrievedly, bit her lip, and said weakly, I'm sorry." "You don't need to apologize to me." Yi Wuxiang interrupted her with an extremely cold expression. "If anything happens to sister-in-law today, I'll kill you." To him, Yi Chen, Meng Meng, and Su Yuhan were the most important people in this world. Meanwhile, Su Yue was just a dispensable existence even though she liked him. Su Yue's face turned pale. "All right, aren't I fine now? Let's go back." Su Yuhan tried to smooth things over immediately. Tianan, Forest City, Yi family. Yi Hai and his wife looked rather fearful when they saw the bunch of people rush into the house all of a sudden. "Who are you guys?" "I'm Lu Tong from the Martial Alliance." A middle-aged man in a green robe walked in. There was mockery in his eyes when he looked at Yi Hai and his wife. "What Martial Alliance? I've never heard of it. What are you guys trying to do?" Yi Hai protected his wife, Wu Lan, behind him tightly. He glared deadly at Lu Tong and the rest while holding a kitchen knife in his hand. It doesn't matter if I've heard of it or not. What's important is that you guys have a great son who killed 6 of our Martial Alliance elders. Lu Tong smiled coldly and waved his hand. Take him away. Take him away. 2 Martial Alliance members walked toward Yi Hai and his wife. Yi Hai was enraged. He could not stop waving the kitchen knife in his hand while glaring at them. I'd like to see who dares to come here. Initially, he thought the duo before him would be scared. Never had he thought that one of them would smirk in disdain and charge at him. He felt his arm go numb, and the kitchen knife fell onto the ground. Before he could react, the person moved and appeared before him all of a sudden. He slapped his chest, and Yi Hai fell onto the ground. Wu Lan was knocked out just when she was going to speak. Bring them back to the headquarters. Lu Tong waved. After his underlings brought Yi Hai and his wife out, a bag of explosives appeared in his hand all of a sudden. A smug smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Mad Southern Yi, so what if you're powerful? Your parents are your weakness after all. This is the price you have to pay for going against the Martial Alliance. He would never forget the shock and psychological trauma the silhouette brought to him when he killed Yuan Bupo on the Surge River that day. He had run away after that. He thought he would behave himself and not offend Yi Chen. Never had he thought that Yi Chen would kill so many masters from the Martial Alliance after he went to Beijing. Apart from being shocked, he was over the moon. Nobody knew how powerful the Martial Alliance was better than him. Although Mad Southern Yi was powerful, he would definitely not end well after offending the Martial Alliance. Lu Tong lit a cigarette slowly as he thought to this point. Lu Tong slowly lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, and ignited the explosive fuse in his hand. Then, he casually threw it into the house, and his whole body turned into an afterimage as he rushed out. After leaping to the roadside downstairs, he blew a smoke ring and grinned. Bang! Bang! As a loud thud came, Yi Chen's house turned into ruins instantly. Countless people screamed in fear. Let's go! Lu Tong stepped on the cigarette butt and got into the black BMW. He glanced at Yi Hai and his wife, who had fainted behind him. Less than 100 meters after the car started, a jeep drove over and blocked their way. As the car door opened, an old man and a young lady got out of the car directly. Lu Tong's expression turned serious. He walked to the duo after getting out of the car and said coldly, "Old Master Gu, what's the meaning of this? My family doesn't care what grudge the Martial Alliance has with Master Yi, but you guys can't touch his family. Family members shouldn't be implicated." Old Master Gu looked at the black BMW and subsequently sighed. Lu Tong smirked in rage. "Just the 2 of you? Don't forget that I, Lu Tong, have an illuminating pulse cultivation base, while you and your granddaughter are merely on internal energy." Old Master Gu forced a smile and clasped his fists at the jeep behind him. "Junior Brother Zhang, please." Lu Tong's expression turned grim as soon as he said that. He could not help but look at the jeep. He saw a middle-aged man in a Taoist robe walk out. The aura he exuded was exactly the same as Lu Tong's. "Who are you?" Lu Tong's expression turned grim. The middle-aged man smiled calmly. "I'm Zhang Yulin, a third-generation disciple of the Wudong sect. I'm here to protect Master Ye's family at Old Master Gu's request." "Since when did Old Master Gu get involved with people from Wudong?" Lu Tong's eyes could not stop flickering. Old Master Gu said, "I was a Taoist priest in Wudong when I was young, so I have a relationship with Wudong. Brother Lu, our abilities are similar. I don't want to fight you. Let go of Master Ye's parents and leave." Zhang Yulin bowed. Lu Tong laughed out loud all of a sudden. "Do you guys think you can stop me?" Chapter 254. Zhang Yulin frowned slightly upon seeing the smile on Lu Tong's face. Subsequently, Lu Tong turned around and bowed at the BMW. "Elder Wu, please help." As soon as he was done speaking, An extremely powerful energy shot out of the BMW all of a sudden. The energy tore the air apart and charged at Zhang Yulin. Bang! Zhang Yulin flew out directly. When he stood up, he stared deadly at the BMW. He was extremely shocked. A martial Dao master? Old Master Gu and Gu Yingying's hearts sank. How dare you interfere with the martial alliance's business? Get lost. An extremely old voice came from the car. The voice alone was enough to make Old Master Gu and the other two's ears ring. Zhang Yulin looked at Old Master Gu and forced a smile. Old Master Gu, I've tried my best. Initially, he did not want to interfere with the matter between the martial alliance and Yi Chen. It was purely because of Old Master Gu's pleading that he mustered the courage to save Yi Chen's parents. However, the other party had a martial Dao master. How could he fight him with his illuminating pulse cultivation base? Hall Master Lu. Old Master Gu shook his head lightly and said, Have you considered that mad Southern Yi will kill his way into the martial alliance and kill everyone by attacking Master Ye's family today? He paused as he spoke to this point and said, You guys can't stop Master Yi from being enraged. Ah. Lu Tong laughed instead of being mad. Since my martial alliance dares to attack him, how can we not be prepared? Just you guys wait and see. Mad Southern Yi will definitely die soon. He returned to the car after saying that and urged the driver to start the car. He left right before Old Master Gu and the other two. Old Master Gu lifted his eyes and looked in the direction of Beijing. He mumbled to himself, Master Yi, my family has tried our best. After sending Yang Junlin off, Yi Chen saw Su Yuhan and the other two return. However, Su Yuhan and Su Yue looked terrible. Especially Su Yue, she was still in shock. Just when Yi Chen was going to say something, Su Yuhan ran into his embrace and hugged his neck tightly. What happened? Yi Chen's expression turned grim. He could sense that Su Yuhan was shaking a little when she was hugging him. She seemed to be frightened by something. Don't talk. Let me be alone. Su Yuhan took a deep breath and buried her head in his embrace. Yi Chen could not help but look at Yi Wushuang, who was next to him. Yi Wushuang told him about the assassination on the way back. Bang! Yi Chen smashed the table in front of him with his palm and looked at Su Yue coldly. Su Yue, you're so kind. If she had not helped the lady would not have had the chance to assassinate her at all. Yi Wushuang had reminded her, but she still wanted to save her. What was funny was that this woman was simply being compassionate. Frightened, Su Yue hurriedly buried her head, covered her mouth and cried, It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Forget it. It's not all Yue's fault. Who would have thought that this would happen? Su Yuhan let go of Yi Chen immediately and forced a stiff smile on her face. Yi Chen glanced at Su Yue coldly and asked, Wushuang, who are they? I've no idea, but it seems like he's an assassin. Yi Wushuang shook his head. Su Yuhan held her forehead. Yi Chen, I'm a little tired. I want to rest. Go! Yi Chen nodded. Su Yue carried Su Yuhan back to the room immediately. He glanced at Yi Wushuang after they left. Are they from the martial alliance? I think so, Yi Wushuang said. What a martial alliance! Yi Chen laughed out of anger. It seems like I've overestimated them. I can't believe they attacked my wife and son. At that moment, Lin Tai walked in quickly from outside. He looked panicked. My lord, something happened in Tianan. The people from the martial alliance took your parents away. His voice fell. Boom. A ferocious aura exuded from Yi Chen's body. He said coldly while looking straight at Lin Tai, When did this happen? Just half an hour ago. Lin Tai knelt onto the ground with a thud due to his aura. He said with sweat all over his head, The people that I arranged to protect my parents have been killed. The martial alliance went to your house directly and took your parents away. They even blew up the house. I also just received a call from Old Master Gu. It was Martial Alliance's Hall Master Lu Tong who brought people to kidnap the two elders. Old Master Gu came out to stop them, but he was stunned by the martial Dao masters on the other side. The house fell into silence for a few seconds after he was done speaking. Yi Chen lifted his head suddenly as killing intent that was like a tsunami flashed through his eyes. Martial Alliance, you guys are seeking death. As the saying went, one should not harm one's family. He would not have been so furious if the Martial Alliance had only targeted Yi Chen. However, his parents, Yuhan, and the rest were his reverse scale. A dragon had a reverse scale, and one would definitely die if one touched it. My lord, what do we do now? Lin Tai asked anxiously. The Martial Alliance had the two elders in their hands, which meant that they had Yi Chen's life in their hands. They could even request anything. That included getting Yi Chen to destroy his cultivation base or commit suicide. I'll go kill them. Yi Wuxuang turned around to leave after saying that. Wait. Yi Chen stopped him and a cold smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. Do they think that I won't be able to find my parents just because they've captured them? They're too naive. Just when Lin Tai was going to speak, he saw Yi Chen leaping out of the house directly. He leaped toward the building across as soon as he stepped out. Yi Chen stood still and looked down on everyone like a god. His eyes were cold as he squeezed a drop of blood from the tip of his finger. The blood floated in the air with a golden glow. Burn my true blood and refine my divine consciousness. Spirit refinement method 10,000 miles tracking. Yi Chen spat out a few words softly and subsequently closed his eyes. The spirit refinement method was a method that could strengthen one's divine consciousness to a range of up to 1,000 meters. One could perform the spirit refinement method under the stimulation of one's true blood, and one's divine consciousness could cover up to 10,000 miles. However, it could only sense people who were related to him by blood. That was the reason why he could not use this method to look for Suyuhan back then. Moreover, there would be certain side effects after using this method. However, it was nothing as long as he could find his parents. At that moment, a massive divine consciousness surged out of Yi Chen's mudball palace crazily. It spread out like a ripple, sweeping through the streets, the tall buildings, and the tall mountains. As long as someone with a similar bloodline to him appeared within the range of his divine consciousness, he would be able to sense it. His parents' bloodline was the closest to his. As his divine consciousness spread out in a frenzy, countless powerhouses in China were the first to sense it. At that moment, countless powerhouses looked at the sky with shock in their eyes. Is that spiritual power? Could it be the legendary Martial Dao Venerable? Rumor had it that after stepping into Martial Dao Venerable, one could release their consciousness and form their own territory. When Yi Chen's divine consciousness covered a radius of 3,000 miles, two extremely rich and familiar bloodline auras appeared in his divine consciousness. Chapter 255. The Genius Stay-at-Home Dad in the City. Chapter 255. The Whereabouts of Yi Chen's Parents, Third Update. Urban Romance Jikikms. Tip: please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading Straight Face, Bookmark Recommended Book, Chapter 255. The Whereabouts of Yi Chen's Parents, Part 3, at the same time. In a building 3,000 kilometers away from Beijing. It was not an ordinary building, but the Martial Alliance's branch in Tiannan. It was mainly there to guard and accept ancient martial artists. Meanwhile, the person guarding the branch was Elder Wu, who was with Lu Tong. He was a martial Dao master. In the building's basement at the moment, Yi Hai and Wu Lan were lying on the ground. As they were tied up tightly, they could not move at all. They said nothing when they woke up. All they did was glare coldly at Lu Tong, who was standing before them. Although they had no idea why the Martial Alliance captured them, they could roughly guess that the Martial Alliance wanted to use them to threaten Yi Chen. Since that was the case, it was useless to scold them. Lu Tong, who was standing before them, chuckled. Don't look at me like that. It's your fault for having such a good son. Tui. Wu Lan spat hard on his face. Lu Tong easily dodged the attack. He wasn't angry at all. Instead, a burly man behind him flew into a rage and slapped towards Wu Lan. No need. Lu Tong stopped him immediately. The hunk scoffed and said, Hall Master Lu, these two people don't know what's good for them. How dare they spit at you? I think we should chop off one of their arms each. As soon as he said that, Yi Hai and Wu Lan's expressions changed at the same time. What's the rush? Lu Tong said while smiling. Chopping off their arms aside, what's the use even if you kill them now? Mad Southern Yi isn't here yet. He paused as he spoke to this point. Tip, please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading. A cruel smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. Why don't we torture his parents slowly when Mad Southern Yi bows down to us? That'll be interesting. That's right. Hall Master Lu, you're so thoughtful. The hunk flattered Lu Tong immediately. Keep an eye on them. I'm going to have a meal. When the plane from the headquarters arrives, I'll bring them back to the headquarters. Lu Tong walked out after saying that. Yen Jing. After sensing his parents' exact address and safety, Yi Chen opened his eyes slowly. A ferocious gleam flashed through his eyes. Are they in Wenzhou, Zhujiang? He leaped from the building and landed in the Imperial Wind Pavilion within the span of a few breaths. He ordered Lin Tai, book me 2 tickets to Wenzhou and Zhujiang immediately. Lin Tai nodded respectfully and took out his phone to book the tickets immediately. Yi Chen then looked at Yi Wuxuang next to him and smiled calmly. Do you dare to go to the Martial Alliance with me and turn the world upside down? Yi Wuxuang said nothing. However, the sword on his back released a sword hum. As lightning flashed, there were crackling sounds of electricity. Lin Tai, transfer all 800 people from the Star Pavilion to the Imperial Wind Pavilion after we leave. Kill anyone who dares to come in, even if their blood flows like a river. Yi Chen reminded. Lin Tai hesitated to speak. My lord, I'm afraid we won't be their match if a martial Dao master attacks the madam. Don't worry about it. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Just deal with the rest. As for powerhouses like masters, someone will deal with them. His divine consciousness exploded from his mudball palace as he spoke to this point. It covered the entire Imperial Wind Pavilion directly. The Patriarch of Hell was lying on the fake mountain at the moment, peeping at the 2 male monkeys and female monkeys being intimate. He looked envious. Patriarch, there's something I want to tell you. The Patriarch of Hell looked away reluctantly after hearing Yi Chen's voice transmission. He walked over while wagging his tail and grinned. Master, your most loyal servant, Cutie, is here. Lin Tai's expression changed as soon as he heard that. Lin Tai, who was standing aside, had a drastic change of expression as if he had seen a ghost. Can dogs talk? He had treated the Patriarch as an ordinary dog earlier. However, he was almost scared to death when the dog suddenly spoke human language. Your whole family is a dog. The Patriarch glanced at him in disdain. Shaolin, be nice to me. I'll eat you if you piss me off. Lin Tai nodded immediately while breaking out in cold sweat. On the other hand, Yi Wuxuang was not surprised at all. After all, he had sensed the Patriarch's abnormality earlier. Yi Chen had explained it to him later on. All right. Yi Chen interrupted him and said while looking at the Patriarch coldly, if any martial Dao masters come after I leave, kill them all you want. At the same time, you can activate the Great Nine Heavens Dragon Transformation formation of the Imperial Wind Pavilion. Master, I'm not sure that Buttface is a match for them. The Patriarch pretended to be in a dilemma, but his eyes started to roll. Old thing, I've been nice to you, haven't I? Yi Chen scoffed. Don't think that I don't know that you've been to the club many times behind my back. Your cultivation base has reached Mastery Stage Spirit Assembly since a long time ago. This bastard was as cunning as a ghost. No wonder he was a Tribulation Stage old monster when he was alive. He was lustful and greedy. He would do anything as long as there were benefits. Reminder, please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. Recommended reading. The Patriarch of Hell smiled awkwardly and changed his words immediately. No problem. I'll definitely protect them. But master, I heard that there's a woman called Ma something Rong who's pretty slutty lately. I'd like to experience it myself when I get back. I'd like to see if she can sprain my back. Lin Tai could not stop coughing upon hearing that. Is he a perverted dog? He seems like he's not picky at all. I can't believe he likes that kind of woman. Yi Chen scoffed and glanced at Wushuang. The duo walked out of the Imperial Wind Pavilion together. Lin Tai drove the car to the entrance. Just when they were going to get into the car, a cough came from far away. An old monk in a kasaya with a staff in his hand walked over. He was dressed like a lama, and he happened to block the car's way. The old monk's hair and beard were all white. He was old and looked like he had 1 foot in the grave. He held an alms bowl in his hand and coughed as he walked. He walked very slowly as if every step he took was strenuous. Yi Wushuang's expression turned cold as the great thunder sword that he carried on his back began shaking. The old monk glanced at Yi Chen with his blurry eyes as he walked closer. Subsequently, he passed the alms bowl over with his shaking hand and said while shaking, "Sir, can I ask for some favors?" Lin Tai walked over and tossed a 100 yuan note into the old monk's bowl. He said coldly, "Take it and get out of my way." The old monk did not even look at the 100 yuan note. He passed the alms bowl in his hand to Yi Chen. Not enough? Lin Tai was pissed. It was his first time encountering such a person. He thought about it and counted 500 yuan again before tossing it into the alms bowl. However, the old monk remained still. "Old man, I'm giving you face, aren't I?" Lin Tai was enraged and wanted to chase him away by instinct. Yi Chen stopped him and looked at the old monk coldly. His voice was extremely cold. "I wonder what kind of favors are you asking for?" Cough, cough, cough. The old monk coughed hard a few times. He seemed to be exhausted. He looked at Yi Chen and said in his deep voice, "I'd like to ask for your head. I wonder if you're willing to do that. P.S. There are 2 more chapters to the 3rd chapter. I'm stuck. I'm writing it now. I won't miss any updates." Chapter 256. The Genius Nanny in the City. Chapter 256. Who else wants to kill me? Come out and take a look. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark, recommend book, Chapter 256. Who else wants to kill me? Come out and take a look. I'd like to melt your head. I wonder if you're willing to do that? The atmosphere changed as soon as the old monk was done speaking. A strong wind blew from the ground all of a sudden, sweeping the fallen leaves into the air. Countless auras were directed at Yi Chen and the rest. "Old man, I noticed that something was wrong with you." Lin Tai was enraged. He threw a punch at the old monk first. The wind whistled and the shadow of the punch was unpredictable like a cannonball. However, the old monk did not even look at it. All he did was take a step forward. An aura that was like a tsunami exploded from his body. Tui! Lin Tai staggered a few steps back from the impact of the aura. He could not help but spit a mouthful of blood out. He looked at the old monk in horror again. Yi Chen had taught him the Azura heaven-suppressing kill and some medicinal pills for cultivation. He had broken through to beginner-stage spirit assembly recently. One could say that he would not be at a disadvantage even if he were to fight an illuminating pulse expert. However, the old monk's aura alone made him retreat. His organs were burning as if they were being burned. His vital energy and blood were rumbling. He reminded immediately as he thought to this point, "Watch out, my lord. This old man's ability is rather terrifying." Yi Chen shook his head lightly and looked at the old monk. "Who sent you here to kill me? The Martial Alliance?" "It's not the Martial Alliance. I'm here for myself." The old monk shook his head. "Wushuang, kill him." "Oh," Yi Chen responded. He then turned around and walked into the car. His expression was extremely cold, as if he was talking about something very normal. However, his divine consciousness sensed that there were countless ancient martial artists hiding around. Moreover, each of them had a powerful ability. Yi Wushuang, who was motionless earlier, released a sword intent. A sword intent exploded from Yi Wushuang, who had been motionless earlier. Invisible sword qi surrounded him, forming a terrifying sword qi storm with him as the center. Sword whistles filled the air. Note: please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. Recommended reading: This is the unparalleled sword? His talent is indeed astonishing. Not bad. To be able to comprehend sword intent at such a young age, and to be able to split sword qi, it seems like the rumors are true. I wonder how Rinpoche of Mean Temple will deal with it. Rinpoche made a name for himself 50 years ago. He's now at the peak of the inborn realm and is the closest to becoming a martial arts supreme. Even Yang Junlin, who's ranked second on the heaven list, can't take 3 moves from him. He's also good at the tantric hard qi skill. The unparalleled sword qi can't break through his defense. Almost at the same time, the powerhouses hiding in various corners started discussing. They had also come for the breakthrough pill after learning about the Martial Alliance's kill order on Mad Southern Yi. However, due to Mad Southern Ye's reputation, everyone chose to remain silent at the same time. Only the old monk could not help but stand up first. Now that the old and the new were fighting, they couldn't help but secretly look forward to it. Amateus. The old monk pressed his palms together with a serious expression on his face. Subsequently, the kasaya he was wearing shook and opened like an umbrella. Energy surrounded him like a wave. Most importantly, a golden energy silhouette was formed next to him. It covered him like a bronze bell. If you can break my golden bell canopy, I will retreat. The old monk said, as if he was compassionate. You don't have to leave. Leave your life here. Yi Wushuang looked cold. As soon as he said that, the hidden powerhouses sneered. They did not think much of it. The Tibetan esoteric sect was best at the lion's roar and the golden bell shield. Every lama would use the esoteric sect's secret body-refining medicine to strengthen their bodies when they cultivated. Although Yi Wushuang was powerful, he could fight Rinpoche to a draw at most. Killing him? That was pure wishful thinking. Even the old monk shook his head lightly, as if he did not agree with what Yi Wushuang said. In the next second, a bolt of lightning lit up. A bolt of lightning lit up. It was a sword gleam, but the gleam was like lightning. The sword gleam was getting brighter and brighter. It was like a bolt of lightning that was rising, illuminating the day. The afterglow that the sword gleam reflected was extremely glaring. At that moment, everyone closed their eyes by instinct. As the sound of flesh being cut was heard, everyone opened their eyes immediately. There was a head on the ground as well as a headless body in a kasaya. The body was still holding the alms bowl, not moving at all. The entire place fell into dead silence. The old abbot of the Mean Temple, Rinpoche, who was the closest to a martial Tao venerable and was an expert in the golden bell shield, was dead. One sword. Just one sword. There was no extra movement. Not only did the sword break Rinpoche's golden bell shield, but it even severed his head. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat as chills ran down their spines. Clang! The long sword was sheathed. Yi Wushuang walked straight into the car. There was a crimson bloodstain on his flawless white clothes. The young man said calmly, "Brother, he's dead." Yi Chen nodded lightly. Subsequently, a shocking killing intent exploded from his body. The killing intent spread out, sending chills down the spines of countless powerhouses who were hiding in the dark, who were waiting for the opportunity to attack. Reminder: please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. Recommended reading: An extremely indifferent voice resounded. Who else wants to kill me? Come out and let me see you. The voice echoed within thousands of meters. It was extremely arrogant, overbearing, and insufferably arrogant. Dead silence filled the air. Nobody spoke, and nobody dared to speak. Drive. Yi Chen glanced at Lin Tai. Lin Tai snapped back to his senses and got into the driver's seat immediately. He started the car and drove off the street slowly. Nobody dared to attack again. Even though they were once on the Heaven leaderboard, even though they had withdrawn from the Heaven leaderboard and cultivated for decades, people regarded them as old monsters. But now, all of them chose to stay silent. An old Taoist wearing a tattered Taoist robe leaped onto the ground after watching the car disappear before his eyes. He looked at the old monk's corpse and then looked in the direction where the car had disappeared. His heart was filled with fear. Monsters. 2 monsters. The Martial Alliance has really messed with the heavens this time. After Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang boarded the plane, they sat by the window directly. At that moment, the plane was filled with many people. As Wushuang sat down, he attracted countless stunned gazes. Regardless of gender, everyone in the entire cabin turned their heads to look at him. Clearly, they were stunned by Wushuang's handsome face. However, Yi Wushuang did not seem to feel that at all. He stood still and his expression was cold. He exuded an aura that pushed people away from him. Although many people were stunned by him, they dared not come up to greet him. Yi Chen glanced at him with a strange expression. He could not help but say while smiling, "I feel pressured sitting with you." He was like a green leaf that served as a foil to Wushuang's red flower. There was actually a hint of sourness in his heart. Yi Wushuang smiled when he heard that. At that moment, the announcement that the plane was about to take off came from the PA system. A lady in beige martial arts attire walked over. She looked at Yi Chen in a condescending manner and said, "I'll buy your seat for 500 yuan. P.S. Chapter 4. There's one more chapter. Chapter 257. Evil Stay-at-Home Dad in the City. Chapter 257. Chiao Yueli's Pride, Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 257. Chiao Yueli's Pride. Yi Chen was slightly stunned when he heard what the lady said. Seeing that he did not speak, the woman snorted coldly. A hint of disdain flashed in her eyes. 1,000 yuan. Is that enough to buy your seat? Yi Chen took a good look at her and was shocked to find out that she was an ancient martial artist on internal energy. Coupled with her beauty and luxurious clothes, it was no wonder that she was so arrogant. Scram! Before waiting for Yi Chen, Yi Wushuang glanced at her coldly. The lady did not expect Yi Wushuang to say that. She was furious and stammered, "So what if you're handsome?" After saying this, she returned to her seat angrily. Women would always judge by their appearance. There were no exceptions, not even Chiao Yueli. She was proud and arrogant, so she did not care about men at all. However, it was her first time seeing someone as handsome as Yi Wushuang. She wanted to switch seats with Yi Chen as she was tempted. In the end, Yi Wushuang told him to scram. "Humph." She scoffed and turned her head around, not allowing herself to look at Yi Wushuang. She mumbled, "Men are all pigs. Aren't they handsome? You can't even take one of my punches." Yi Chen shook his head lightly. "I've finally seen it. It seems like being handsome is really something nowadays." The lady's attitude toward him earlier was disdain. However, she dared not say anything after Yi Wushuang rolled away. She sat back obediently. Didn't that prove everything? Thinking of this, he simply closed his eyes and rested. Over 2 hours later, the plane finally landed at Wenzhou Longwan Airport in Zhejiang. Just when Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang walked out of the terminal, Chiao Yueli caught up to them from behind. She said angrily to Yi Wushuang, "I'll remember you, pretty boy." Yi Wushuang's eyes turned cold. Just when he was going to draw his sword, Chiao Yueli walked to the side of the road and got into a Porsche. "Forget it, who asked you to be so handsome? Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading." Yi Chen took out the great thunder sword from his storage ring and passed it to him. He patted his shoulder and led him to the roadside to hail a car. After getting in, the driver turned his head and asked, "Where are we going?" just drive straight ahead. I'll tell you when we turn, Yi Chen said coldly. He could only sense his parents' location, but he had never been to Wenzhou, so he didn't know what this place was called. The driver glanced at Yi Wuxuang and could not help but ask, "Bro, where are you filming? You look pretty cool." Seeing that Yi Wuxuang was carrying a sword on his back and was dressed in a white ancient costume, he thought that Yi Wuxuang was an actor. That was the reason why Yi Chen and Yi Wuxuang did not cause any commotion along the way. The only problem was that Yi Wuxuang's great thunder sword could not pass the security check easily. Therefore, Yi Chen put the sword away in his storage ring before boarding the plane. Yi Chen knew that the driver had misunderstood, but he went with the flow and said, "It's at the Beijing Hengdian Film City." The driver's expression was as if he had expected it. At the Martial Alliance building in the southeast, it was crowded at the moment. Most of them were ancient martial artists, and they were testing their abilities in the training room of the building. The so-called training room was actually similar to an equipment room. There were spring rods, dynamometers, barbells, and the like. The main function was to test an ancient martial artist's comprehensive ability through strength and stamina. Qiu Yueli was in there at the moment. She was spacing out as she recalled the young man in white that she had encountered on the plane. Isn't he just handsome? What's so amazing about that? No matter how handsome he is, he's still weak. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Next, Qiu Yueli. At that moment, the Martial Alliance staff's numb voice came. Qiu Yueli snapped back to her senses. She took a few steps forward and bowed to the old man before her respectfully. "Greetings, Deacon Chen." The old man before her was the Martial Alliance's deacon. He was also a beginner-stage illuminating pulse expert. Even her father had to treat him with respect. Deacon Chen gave a neutral response and said expressionlessly, "Let's begin the test. If you're proven to have an internal energy cultivation base, you can join my Martial Alliance." "Oh sure." Qiu Yueli, who was extremely arrogant earlier, was a little nervous hearing that. She walked to the side and picked up a spring rod. She twisted it gently, and the spring rod was twisted into a dough twist. The rest were shocked to see that. Clearly, they did not expect a lady to have such great strength. Deacon Chen nodded lightly. "Give her a 30-centimeter steel pipe." Immediately, a staff member handed a steel pipe to Qiu Yueli. Qiu Yueli took a deep breath and bent it hard. Her face was flushed, and the steel pipe was immediately bent to 90 degrees. However, no matter how hard Qiu Yueli tried, she couldn't bend it at all. "Pass," Deacon Chen said expressionlessly. That alone made the rest of the people who came to take the test look at Qiu Yueli enviously. Clearly, the lady had passed the Martial Alliance's test and could join the alliance. It was countless people's dream to join the Martial Alliance. "Ms. Qiu, this is the Martial Alliance uniform." A staff passed her a set of black clothes. Qiu Yueli clenched her fists in excitement. She could not help but think of Yi Wuxuang again. And be reminder, please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading, SP, Gigolo. Now that I've joined the Martial Alliance, it means that you and I are in different worlds. You're just a mortal after all. A loud thud came from outside all of a sudden just when she was thinking about that. Qiu Yueli opened her eyes to look by instinct. She was dumbstruck as her beautiful eyes were wide open. Outside the glass door, a skinny silhouette walked over slowly while carrying a car with one arm. Meanwhile, there was a young man in white following next to him. It's them." Qiu Yueli looked shocked as her little mouth turned into an O shape. Never had she thought that the duo she had met on the plane would come to the Martial Alliance branch. Moreover, Yi Chen, whom she had looked down on earlier, was carrying a car with one arm. Are they ancient martial artists too? Before she could react, she saw Yi Chen toss the car in his hand as he walked closer. It smashed hard on the glass door. The car went on a rampage and crashed into the Martial Alliance directly from the intense energy wave. "Who are you?" How dare you mess around in the martial alliance? At that moment, two silhouettes with extremely powerful auras leaped out of the martial alliance and shouted, "It's clan leader Zhao and the rest!" Officer Chen, who was earlier, screamed and said with a scoff, "How dare those two guys cause trouble here? They're dead meat now. One must know that clan leader Zhao and the rest are illuminating pulse experts." Qiu Yueli was shocked to hear that. She wanted to tell Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang to run by instinct. However, just when she opened her mouth, Yi Chen smashed clan leader Zhao and the rest into a bloody mist. At that moment, the place fell into dead silence. The powerful Hall Master Zhao was killed by a single slap from the other party? Qiu Yueli was dumbstruck. Yi Chen glanced at the people before him coldly and lifted his eyes to speak to Yi Wushuang next to him. "Kill everyone who's wearing the Martial Alliance uniform." He rushed to the building's basement directly after saying that because he sensed that his parents were down there. Moreover, they seemed to be taking them away. P.S. Chapter 5. Sorry for making everyone wait. Chapter 258. The Genius Nanny in the City. Chapter 258. Death I am born from killing. Those who go against me must die. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 258. Death I am born from killing. Those who go against me must die. Kill everyone who's wearing the Martial Alliance uniform. As soon as Yi Chen left, Yi Wushuang was the only one left. Kill him! Deacon Chen, who was earlier, roared and charged at Yi Wushuang with his palm. A cold grin appeared on his face. To him, Yi Wushuang was merely a 17 or 18-year-old young man. How could he be his match? Qiu Yueli snapped back to her senses and stomped her feet in panic. Her little face was flushing. "Pretty boy, run! Run now!" However, Yi Wushuang remained where he was. Just when Qiu Yueli thought he was dead, a glaring sword gleam streaked across the sky. Subsequently, Deacon Chen, who was approaching Yi Wushuang, froze all of a sudden. He could not move at all. A bloody line split open on his forehead. Bang! Deacon Chen's body exploded into half directly. Blood mixed with his organs splashed all over the ground. Until he died, he had no idea how the young man before him had attacked. The scene that came out of nowhere shocked everyone in the lounge. Qiu Yueli stared blankly at the young man in white before her as her chest heaved up and down. Is this pretty boy so powerful? Deacon Chen was an illuminating pulse expert. He was 100 times more powerful than her, but he was killed before he could even touch the corner of the pretty boy's shirt? Kill! Kill him! Countless Martial Alliance experts rushed out from all corners of the lounge. They leaped at Yi Wushuang in a flash. The powerful energy wave threw the people behind them out. Yi Wushuang stood coldly with a cold expression. Sword intent surged on his body as he expressionlessly watched the over 10 people who were charging at him. Each of them had at least an internal energy cultivation base. Bang! A terrifying sword intent came out of Yi Wushuang's body all of a sudden. Lightning flashed through the great thunder sword behind him, and a sword chi exploded from the sword hilt. It turned into a rain of swords that swept everywhere. The sword chi was like rain and the sword gleam was like thunder. With him as the center, it rained swords, and the dozen people who were charging at him exploded into blood mist at the same time. If there were any martial Dao grandmasters present, they would realize that these people were torn apart by the sword chi. Before the sword was unsheathed, the person was already dead. Qiu Yueli was in a daze, her face was pale. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Not only was this gigolo handsome, his strength was also so terrifying. To think that she had thought that he was good-looking but useless, unable to withstand a punch from her. In the basement of the Martial Alliance building, a hunk rushed down in a panic and looked at Lu Tong, who was sitting in front of him. El Clan Leader Lu, bad news. El Mad Southern Yi is here. What? Lu Tong's scalp went numb, his face filled with disbelief. How did he know that we captured his parents and brought them here? No, let's move now. Elder Wu, let's go. The expression on his face was replaced by fear. He knew how powerful Yi Chen was. He would definitely die if Yi Chen caught him. A skinny old man in a gray robe looked grim. He knew very well that he was no match for Mad Southern Yi, even though he was a martial Dao master. What about them? The hunk stretched his arm and pointed at Yi Hai and Wu Lan, who were standing aside. Kill them. Killing intent flashed through Lu Tong's face as he grinned in a creepy manner. Kill them. Even if Mad Southern Yi comes, he'll only see 2 dead bodies. I want him to live in regret and self-blame for the rest of his life. Yi Hai and Wu Lan's expressions changed as soon as he said that. Yi Hai and Wu Lan's expressions changed one after another. The hunk grinned cruelly. He moved and slapped Yi Hai and Wu Lan with immense strength. At that moment, a loud thud came. Following a loud bang, the entire basement shook violently. Everyone felt their feet stumble and hurriedly looked up in shock. Even the burly man was no exception. They saw a gigantic crack appear on the ceiling above their heads. An intense killing intent descended. Oh no, he's here. Lu Tong's expression changed drastically. He ordered immediately, quick, capture his parents. Otherwise, we'll all die. The hunk snapped back to his senses and turned his fist into a claw. He grabbed Yi Hai and his wife directly. However, at that moment, his right hand that he extended ignited all of a sudden. The flame did not go out. The hunk shrieked in devastation. The flame covered his entire body and burned him into ashes within the blink of an eye. Many people looked at this scene in horror. Nobody dared to touch Yi Hai and his wife anymore. Even Wu Chonglao, the martial Dao master present, was no exception. He felt a chill rush into his heart. He abandoned everyone without thinking and leaped toward the basement's exit. Run. It was more important to run. Elder Wu, save me. Lu Tong could not stop screaming. However, Elder Wu did not seem to hear him. He moved and turned into an afterimage. He leaped to the stairs within the blink of an eye. Just when he thought he had escaped, he suddenly realized that the corridor in front of him was ablaze. The fire covered the sky and the earth, completely blocking his way. The sea of fire spread and the ground shook. Yi Chen leaped out of the crack on the ceiling slowly. His eyes were pitch black, and he looked like the god of death had arrived. His extremely cold voice shook the entire basement. I was born in a massacre and I'll die in death. When I return to the world, those who go against me will die. A monstrous fire ignited on his body, covering his entire body. However, Yi Chen placed his arms behind his back with a cold expression on his face. It was real fire. It was Yi Chen's rage. It was Yi Chen's rage. Note: please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. Recommended reading. This was the wrath of the Heavenly Emperor. His parents, wife, and daughter were his reverse scale. He would die if he touched them. Xiaochen? Yi Hai and Wu Lan watched that blankly. Never had they thought that their son would really come to save them. Not only that, but his entrance was so shocking. Yi Chen lifted his head to look at them and smiled lightly. His smile was apologetic. Dad, Mom, please close your eyes. It's a little bloody. I don't want to scare you guys. Yi Hai and Wu Lan closed their eyes immediately. Mad Southern Yi. Lu Tong screamed hysterically when he saw Yi Chen's face clearly. He was shaking. Yi Chen looked at him expressionlessly. You're great. That stare scared Lu Tong out of his wits. He said immediately, Elder Wu, let's attack him together. Kill him. Otherwise, we'll all die. He knew that Yi Chen was powerful, and he also knew that there was no room for negotiation when they kidnapped his parents. Since that was the case, he could only fight with his life on the line. Kill. Elder Wu had a ferocious expression on his face as he shouted. Energy surged around him, and his arms were covered in an extremely powerful energy. He charged at Yi Chen directly like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. How dare you touch my family? All must die. A shocking roar came out of Yi Chen's mouth. He stretched his arm out, and Elder Wu was lifted into the air by his neck. How are you so powerful? Elder Wu was scared out of his wits. He was a martial Dao master, but he was captured by Yi Chen just like that. He threw a punch at Yi Chen's face by instinct. Gotcha! Elder Wu's right arm was ripped off by Yi Chen as soon as the sound of his joints cracking was heard. Blood was spurting out of his severed arm. Elder Wu shrieked in devastation. Gotcha! His left arm was ripped off by Yi Chen again. Kill me! Elder Wu's face was twisted into a mess. What kind of person have I offended? P.S. Chapter 1 at 9 p.m. There are 4 more chapters to go. Please vote for me. Chapter 259. Evil Stay-at-Home Dad in the City. Chapter 259. One Man and One Sword. Second update. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 259. One Man and One Sword. 2 p.m. Does it hurt? Yi Chen smirked coldly when he heard Elder Wu's scream. You should have known this day would come from the moment you touched my family. Yi Chen performed 2 wind blades after saying that. He severed both of his legs directly and tossed him onto the ground. Yi Chen stepped on his head. Elder Wu's lower body twitched violently a few times before he breathed his last. Such a bloody and cruel scene struck fear into the hearts of everyone present. Lu Tong's eyes were about to pop out of their socket. Mad. Madman, you're a madman. The powerful Elder Wu did not have the slightest ability to resist. He was like a dog being slaughtered. At this moment, he was extremely regretful. Yi Chen lifted his head to look at them and grinned, revealing his white teeth. However, his smile was extremely creepy. Don't worry, it'll be your turn soon. Plop. Lu Tong's legs went limp, and he knelt hard before Yi Chen. He kowtowed like he was pounding garlic. Spare me, mad Southern Yi. I'm begging you. Spare my worthless life. I won't dare to do it again. I'm willing to be your dog. Seeing him like this, the others also knelt down and kowtowed loudly, trembling as they said, Spare us. They were truly scared out of their wits by Yi Chen. How is this a human? He's clearly a demon. Yi Chen walked toward Lu Tong one step after another. Each step he took seemed to be stepping on their hearts. Lu Tong, you're not bad. You captured my parents and blew up my house. Tell me, how do you want to die? I won't dare to do it again. The Martial Alliance ordered me to do all of this. Lu Tong was secretly terrified. Subsequently, a ferocious gleam flashed through his eyes as he charged at Yi Chen. A sharp dagger appeared in his hand out of nowhere. The dagger went straight for Yi Chen's heart. Die! A ferocious expression appeared on his face. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. / to him, no matter how powerful Yi Chen was at such a close distance, his sneak attack would definitely pierce through Yi Chen's heart. However, in the next moment, his expression froze. When the dagger stabbed into Yi Chen's chest, it did not pierce through Yi Chen's heart as expected. Instead, a ding was heard. Yi Chen felt his arm go numb and the dagger was bent. A misunderstanding. Lu Tong's lips trembled. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly felt a large hand pressing down on his head. Then, he felt as though his head was about to explode. The pain was unbearable. Ah! He wanted to struggle, but he was held down tightly. After Yi Chen read the memories in his head with the soul-searching tactic, he smashed his head with his palm. He looked at the over 20 people kneeling before him again. He reached out and grabbed the dagger on the ground. As soon as the dagger fell into his hand, it shattered into countless pieces of metal. Die! Yi Chen lifted his arm and waved. The metal pieces shot at the 20-odd people. A white gleam flashed, and the killing intent was intense. The area between their brows was pierced by the metal pieces, and their begging stopped abruptly. At that moment, apart from Yi Chen's parents, everyone in the entire basement was dead. Nobody was left alive. Yi Chen glanced at his parents who were far away. Seeing that both of them still had their eyes closed, they seemed to be suffering from the pain. He bit the tip of his finger and drew a soul-capturing formation on his right palm. He chanted, "Wandering souls, where can you stay? The 3 souls have arrived, and the 7 spirits have arrived." Everything happened almost instantly. Black energy flashed through the bodies of the 20-odd people who were killed on the ground. Ferocious faces were reflected as if there were countless ghosts roaring and growling. The black energy shot into the sky, and the resentment lingered. "Collect." Yi Chen faced the spirits with his palm. As soon as he said that, the spirits turned into black energy and flew into the soul-capturing formation on his palm. It was the soul-capturing method of the 5 Ghosts sect in the cultivation world. It could capture spirits into a formation, preventing them from reincarnating. Yi Chen only walked to Yi Hai and his wife after everything was done. He knelt hard onto the ground. "Dad, Mom, I'm here. I'm sorry for scaring you guys." It was Yi Chen's responsibility that his parents were captured by the people from the Martial Alliance. Fortunately, he arrived in time, and Lu Tong and the rest did not do anything to his parents. Yi Hai and Wu Lan only opened their eyes then. Fear flashed through their faces when they saw the dead bodies on the ground. "Xiaoqin, are they dead?" Yi Hai asked after gulping. "That's right." Yi Chen nodded slowly. "How dare they offend Mom and Dad? They deserve to die." Wu Lan said while looking pale, "Why you've killed so many people? Will you be imprisoned?" "Don't worry. I know what to do. Let's go. I'll bring you guys to Beijing to see Yuhan." Yi Chen smiled and got up to help his parents up. He tossed the fireball tactic, and a sea of fire appeared behind him. Meanwhile, there were up to 100 dead bodies lying on the ground in the Martial Alliance lobby at the moment. If one were to look closer, one would notice that all of the dead bodies wore black martial attire with the Martial Alliance logo on their chests. All of them were from the Martial Alliance. None of them survived. The 30-odd people who survived looked blankly at the young man in white who stood before them with a sword in his hand. They were secretly shocked. Reminder: please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. Recommended reading: A man and a sword had destroyed the entire Martial Alliance branch. Even Qiu Yueli was no exception. She looked at the Martial Alliance uniform in her hand and her hand shook. She tossed it onto the ground immediately. Her face was pale, but she was secretly relieved. Fortunately, she did not put on the Martial Alliance uniform as soon as she got it. Otherwise, there would be another dead body on the ground. Yi Wuxuang saw everything that she did. A conflicted gleam flashed deep in his cold eyes. Should I kill her or not? Big Brother said that anyone who wears the Martial Alliance uniform must die. Although she didn't wear it, she's still from the Martial Alliance. She hesitated for a moment. Yi Wuxuang walked to her slowly while holding his sword. There was a faint ruthlessness and killing intent growing under his seemingly calm face. Qiu Yueli fell onto the ground and said while stammering, What are you trying to do? I am not from the Martial Alliance." At that moment, she had completely forgotten who had called Yi Wuxuang a good-for-nothing gigolo earlier. A sword gleam swept over. Qiu Yueli closed her eyes in despair. A while later, she realized that she was alive and well. She could not help but open her eyes to see that the young man in white had walked out. Meanwhile, there were 3 people standing outside the Martial Alliance. One of them was the young man who had broken in while carrying the car with one hand. Phew, that was close. Qiu Yueli was relieved, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off her shoulders. She patted her chest by instinct, causing her breasts to undulate. "Come out now if you don't want to die." Yi Chen glanced at the 30-odd people in the lobby. The people ran out one after another as soon as he said that. The Almighty Killer sword appeared in Yi Chen's hand. He took a step out and swung his sword at the entire Martial Alliance building. As everyone watched in shock, the Martial Alliance building that was 10 stories tall was slashed into ruins by the sword gleam. The Martial Alliance branch that dominated the southeast was gone just like that. Let's go. Yi Chen shook his head and left with his parents and Yi Wushuang. Qiu Yueli watched them leave in a daze. The shock within her lingered for a long time. Who exactly are they? Chapter 260. Evil Stay-at-Home Dad in the City. Chapter 260. Introduce someone to Wushuang. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 260. Introduce someone to Wushuang. That afternoon, at the Imperial Wind Pavilion in Beijing, Su Yuhan knelt hard before Yi Hai and his wife. Tears filled her eyes. Dad, Mom, I haven't been filial to you all these years. I'm unfilial. During the 2 years that she was not around, Meng Meng was completely taken care of by the 2 old men. She had heard about the pressure from Yi Chen, so she felt guilty toward the 2 old men. Yuhan, quick! Get up! Wu Lan hurriedly helped her up and held her hand tightly. Her eyes were red. Silly child, what are you talking about? You've suffered all these years. It's your parents and I who should say sorry. Your mother is right. You've been locked up by the Su family for 2 years. Although we don't know anything, we can imagine that you've suffered more than us. At the side, Yi Hai hugged Meng Meng and sighed with a face full of self-blame, but fortunately, Shaochen saved you. Now our family is finally reunited. Yi Chen said while smiling, All right, it's a family reunion today. It's a happy occasion, so don't frown. As soon as he said that, Wu Lan and Yi Hai glared at him at the same time. Yi Hai scoffed and said with a straight face, How dare you talk, kid? Now that Yuhan is back, I'll beat you to death if you don't treat her well in the future. Yi Chen could only nod, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Dad, Mom, don't worry. I'll definitely treat Yuhan well. Also, when are you getting married? Have you chosen the date? Yi Hai's expression softened. Hearing this, Su Yuhan's pretty face blushed. Yi Chen shook his head, indicating that he had not decided yet. His plan was to settle the matters in Beijing and discuss the date after bringing Su Yuhan back to Tiannan. And NB, please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 Recommended Reading, SP. Wu Lan chimed in, Yuhan has been waiting for you for 5 years, but she hasn't been married yet. You must get married, and it must be a grand wedding. I'll discuss the date with your father later. The sooner, the better. The sooner, the better? Yi Chen was stunned. Of course. Wu Lan glared at him in annoyance. Do you think you're still a young man in his 20s? The wedding should have been held 5 years ago, but you dragged it on for 5 years. Also, your dad has always wanted a grandchild. Cough, 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 Yi Chen coughed. Dad, Mom, you guys talk. I'll cook for you guys. Su Yuhan could not take it anymore. She ran away after saying that while blushing. On the other hand, Meng Meng, who was in Yi Hai's embrace, blinked her eyes and said with a childish voice, Grandpa, I don't want a younger brother. Why? Yi Hai looked at her with a kind expression. Wu Lan and Yi Chen could not help but look at the little girl. The little fellow pouted. If I have a younger brother, I won't be a kid anymore. Daddy, Mommy, Grandpa, and Grandma will love my younger brother more. I'll fall out of favor. The people in the room were completely petrified. The little girl paused and said, Moreover, if I have a younger brother, I'll beat him up if he cries. He'll even snatch my snacks. What are you talking about, kid? Wu Lan rolled her eyes at her. She said, feeling amused and annoyed at the same time, If you have a younger brother, he'll protect you when he grows up. Nobody will bully you then. I see. The little girl snapped back to her senses and said with excitement written all over her face, Daddy, I want a younger brother. I want a lot of younger brothers. I'll bring my younger brothers to school in the future. If anyone bullies me in class, my younger brothers will beat him up. Yi Chen was shocked by what she said. He shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or to cry. Daddy and Mommy are already worried about you. You want a younger brother? Are you trying to tire Daddy and Mommy out? I don't care. I want a younger brother. The little girl lifted her chin proudly. Soon, Su-yuhan prepared a table full of delicious dishes. Yi-chun glanced at Yi Wushwang, who was rather reserved when they were eating. He said to his parents while smiling, "Dad, Mom, let me introduce you guys. This is Yi Wushwang, my new godbrother. This kid is so handsome. He's even more handsome than a lady." In reality, Wu Lan had noticed Wushwang since the beginning. She could not help but compliment him after Yi Chen was done introducing him. Yi Wushwang's cheeks flushed when he heard that. Yi Hai picked up a glass of wine and toasted Yi Wushwang. He said while smiling, "Since you're Xiaochun's godbrother, we're a family from now on. Can you drink? Shall we?" Yi Wushwang picked up a glass of wine and clinked it with him. He choked and coughed as soon as he took a sip, making everyone laugh. "Wushwang is still a kid. Why are you asking him to drink?" Wu Lan rolled her eyes at Yi Hai angrily. She then turned to look at Yi Wushwang and smiled. "Wushwang, how old are you this year?" Yi Wushwang was a little lost to hear that. He had no idea how old he was. He had been a sword spirit before. If he were to be counted as a sword spirit, he would be at least 1,000 years old. However, he was a human now. If he were to be counted according to the time he had been turned into a human until now, he had only been 100 days old at most. Reminder: please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading. Sensing his mother's dilemma, Yi Chen took over the conversation and said, "Mom, Wushwang has just turned 18. He's an adult now." "Not bad, not bad." The smile on Wu Lan's face was getting brighter. She turned into a gossipy auntie as she said while squinting, "Do you have a boyfriend?" Yi Wushwang was stunned. Su Yue, who was busy eating, froze with her chopsticks. She could not help but look at him. There was a hint of nervousness deep in her beautiful eyes. Wu Lan knew that he did not have a girlfriend when she saw his expression. She could not help but say, "Xiaochun has a cousin who's 2 to 3 years older than you. If you don't mind, I can introduce you guys later." Cousin? Yi Chen was stunned at first. Subsequently, he recalled who his mother was talking about. Who else could it be if not Yi Wen? Cough, cough, cough. Su Yue panicked when she heard that. She accidentally choked and coughed. She got up to get some water immediately. "What are you thinking? Isn't Wenwen only a few years older than Wushwang? She's clearly 7. Yi Hai glanced at Wu Lan helplessly. "What do you know?" Wu Lan chuckled. "As the saying goes, a girl is 1 year older than a golden rooster. A girl is 2 years older than a golden can. A girl is 3 years older than a golden brick. A girl is 4 years older than a lucky girl. A girl is 6 years older than an old mother. If you're not happy, a girl is 7 years older than a girl." Yi Hai was speechless at that moment. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. "Forget it. No matter how old a girl is, she's a good match to you." The patriarch of hell, who was sitting aside, had envy, jealousy, and hatred written all over his face when he saw that. A girl is 4 years older than a girl and she's all smiles? I'm King mad now. You should introduce me to someone too. The patriarch wanted to say that, but he did not dare to. He was mainly afraid that he would scare Yi Chen if he said that. Yi Chen would skin him alive. At the same time, Su Yue, who was in the house, had a terrible expression on her face. A strong sense of danger rose within her. "Suyuhan, oh Suyuhan. Ning Rulan is finally gone, and now you have another competitor." Chapter 261. The Genius Nanny in the City. Chapter 261. I, Mad Southern Yi, am here to destroy the martial alliance today. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Chapter 261. I, Mad Southern Yi, am here to destroy the martial alliance today. After dinner, Wu Lan dragged Suyuhan to wash the dishes. The mother and daughter chatted and laughed in the kitchen. Meanwhile, Yi Hai was watching television on the couch while carrying Meng Meng. Yi Chen called Lin Tai over and passed him a list of refining materials. He ordered, "Go buy the materials on the list for me." Over an hour later, Lin Tai handed all of the materials to Yi Chen. Yi Chen glanced at his parents and walked to another room. He lifted his arm to set up a barrier and began refining magic tools. After an hour, a black banner appeared in his hand. The black banner exuded a faintly discernible gloomy aura. Yi Chen opened his right palm slowly. He slowly removed the soul-capturing formation on his palm. Bang! Over 20 black energy shot out of his palm and wandered around the house in a frenzy. Ferocity and resentment flashed on their faces. Furious roars, growls, and devastating shrieks came one after another. "Gather!" Yi Chen performed a series of hand seals with both hands. Subsequently, over 20 black energy floating in the air rushed into the black flag before him. "Martial Alliance, this is the gift that I've prepared for you guys." A creepy smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. It was a 100-spirit flag that was commonly seen in the cultivation world. It could store spirits and use them to fight enemies. It was a rather vicious magic tool. Yi Chen would not have bothered to refine such an item with his character. However, what the Martial Alliance did had crossed his line. It would be too easy to just kill them. That's great too. The 100-spirit flag needs tens of souls to be complete. I'll use the Martial Alliance to refine a weapon for me. Yi Chen scoffed and walked out after putting the 100-spirit flag away. He saw Yi Wushuang standing at the door quietly. "Brother, when are we leaving?" He knew very well that the Martial Alliance had triggered Yi Chen completely. It would not be as simple as destroying a Martial Alliance branch. If he wanted to destroy them, he would destroy the entire Martial Alliance. "Let's go now, they've lived long enough." Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Killing intent flashed through Yi Chen's eyes. He walked to the living room and told his parents that he had something to do. He then led Yi Wushuang out of the Imperial Wind Pavilion. When nobody noticed them, Yi Chen took out the almighty killer sword and lifted his eyes to look at Yi Wushuang. "Let's fly on the sword. Our destination is Mount Hua." Before this, he had retrieved the location of the Martial Alliance's headquarters from Lu Tong's mind using the soul-searching art. It was Mount Hua. As his voice fell, he performed a hand seal with one hand and leaped onto the almighty killer sword. He turned into a sword gleam and soared into the sky. Yi Wushuang followed closely behind him. The two sword gleams traversed 10,000 kilometers in the sky and charged toward Mount Hua while breaking through the wind. At the same time, within the jurisdiction of Qin City, the ancient capital of the 13 dynasties, Mount Hua was one of the 5 mountains. It was known as the Western Mountain and was also known as Taihua Mountain. It was connected to the Qinling Mountains in the south and the Huangwei River in the north. Since ancient times, it had been known as the #1 dangerous mountain in the world. There were many natural and cultural sceneries. The scenery aside, the sword duel on Mount Hua that old Master Jin wrote about took place there. People only knew that it was a famous mountain for sightseeing. However, they had no idea that the Martial Alliance's headquarters was in the dense forest of Mount Hua. The Martial Alliance had been passed down for hundreds of years. Many talents had been born during that period. Some of them knew geomancy formations, so they set up formations to hide the mountain. Ordinary people would not be able to find them at all. Even satellites and planes flying over their heads would not notice anything unusual. Meanwhile, the Martial Alliance's headquarters was dead silent at the moment. Over 10 silhouettes sat on the armchairs. Each of them exuded a faint, suffocating aura. Meanwhile, an old man in purple robes sat before them. The old man in purple robes looked majestic without being angry. He glanced at the people beneath him coldly, and none of them dared to look him in the eye. The reason being that the person was the deputy chief of the Martial Alliance, Million Killer. His position was only second to the chief, Sikong Ao. His ability was unpredictable and extremely terrifying. Anyone over the age of 60 would know what the words Million Slaughterer represented. It represented blood-red human heads and living human lives. 40 years ago, China was in the midst of reform and opening up. It was under a lot of pressure everywhere, especially among the sections. Countless sects such as Kongtong were conservative and unwilling to contact overseas. Instead, they restrained the country with their power. As soon as Old Deng gave the order, the Martial Alliance's saber was aimed at those sects' heads directly. Million Killer was the one who led the team back then. Countless sects were suppressed by Million Killer, and the price was their heads rolling on the ground. That was how Million Killer got his name. Million Killer placed his hand on the table and said in his deep voice, "I just received news that my Martial Alliance's southeast branch was destroyed. Everyone from the Martial Alliance died." As soon as he said that, this immediately caused an uproar in the entire room. More than 10 people looked at each other, and they could see the shock and anger in each other's eyes. At that moment, the dead silence in the room cooled down. An old man with a long beard slammed the table and stood up. He shouted coldly, "Who's so bold? How dare they destroy my Martial Alliance branch?" Million Killer smirked coldly. "Who else could it be? Of course, it's the number 1 on the Heaven leaderboard, Mad Southern Yi. Lu Tong, Elder Wu, and the rest who we sent to capture his parents are all dead." "It's him?" the old man with a long beard exclaimed. He looked like he was in disbelief. "Didn't our Martial Alliance give the order to kill him? Moreover, I heard that the old abbot of Miin Temple, Rinpoche, priest Lu from Chao Feng Temple, and the rest went to kill Mad Southern Yi. Is he still alive? That old bald donkey is dead." Million Killer's expression was extremely grim. "The old bald donkey is too stubborn. I can't believe he challenged Mad Southern Yi head-on. Mad Southern Yi didn't even fight. That unparalleled sword killed him with a swing of his sword. Priest Lu and the rest were afraid. Nobody dared to fight anymore." Note: please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading. As soon as he was done speaking, the entire room was dead silent. Everyone was shocked. They knew about Rinpoche of the Miin Temple and Taoist Lu of the Chao Feng Temple. Both of them had reached the threshold of the Martial Way Supreme Master. To put it bluntly, both of them were more powerful than everyone present. However, they were killed by the unparalleled sword with a swing of his sword. Priest Lu was so scared that he dared not fight anymore. An old man with a sharp nose inhaled sharply with a grim expression. "Deputy Chief, what should our Martial Alliance do now?" Million Killer shook his head lightly. Subsequently, a gleam shot out of his eyes. "So what if it's destroyed? It's just a branch. We can rebuild it later. Mad Southern Yi said 3 days ago that he'll come to our Martial Alliance mountain gate today and destroy the entire Martial Alliance. If he comes," the old man with a long beard could not help but say. The old man with a sharp nose smirked coldly. "Why are you worried about that? There's a formation outside our Martial Alliance mountain gate. How can Mad Southern Yi find it?" "Don't worry." Million Killer revealed a mocking smirk at the corner of his lips. "Although Mad Southern Yi is powerful, he definitely won't dare to come to our Martial Alliance. Even if he comes, we'll definitely be able to kill him with our 8 Guardian Elders and our own alliance." Upon hearing that, the people nodded by instinct. Each of the 8 Guardian Elders had an ability that was comparable to Rinpoche from Miin Temple. They were terrifying. Moreover, the 8 of them had been together for 40 to 50 years. Their hearts were connected and they knew how to practice formations. Moreover, with the Million Killer's help, they would be able to put up a fight even if they were to face the legendary supreme martial artist. If that's the case, I hope that Mad Southern Yi will come soon. An old man laughed out loud. He looked calm. Just when Million Killer was going to speak, a loud thud came from outside the room. It was as if a meteorite had fallen. At that moment, more than 10 people, including Million Killer, stood up at the same time. Their expressions were serious as they stared at the sky. They saw two silhouettes standing proudly between heaven and earth. One of them was dressed in black while the other was dressed in white. An extremely arrogant voice shook the entire place. It was as vast and deep as 10,000 horses galloping. I, Mad Southern Yi, am here to destroy the Martial Alliance today. Come and accept your death, Martial Alliance's dogs. P.S. There's one more chapter in the 4th chapter. The climax isn't easy to write. Please wait patiently. There will be no shortage of updates. Chapter 262. The Genius Nanny in the City. Chapter 262. If anyone dares to be my enemy, I, Yi Chen, will kill everyone in the world. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark, recommend book. Chapter 262. If anyone dares to be my enemy, I, Yi Chen, will kill everyone in the world. As Yi Chen's extremely cold voice was heard, the Martial Alliance headquarters that was noisy earlier fell into silence. It was as if a meteorite had fallen into a river. What? He's Mad Southern Yi. I can't believe that this person really dares to come to our Martial Alliance. Do they think that they can destroy our Martial Alliance? How arrogant of you! Who's the young man next to him? Could he be the number 12 on the Heaven leaderboard, the young man in white who defeated the 4 families of Mount Wangu? Countless eyes focused on the two silhouettes in the air. Their pupils shrunk after being stunned for a moment. Shock appeared on their faces. The people from the Martial Alliance were very familiar with Mad Southern Yi. The people from the Martial Alliance were very familiar with him. They could recite everything about Mad Southern Yi backwards. It would be a lie to say that they were not shocked that such a person really came to the Martial Alliance today. At that moment, the place was dead silent. Deputy Chief 2 and the rest are here. Nobody knew who screamed. Everyone could not help but turn their heads to look. They saw Million Killer leaping over with over 10 people behind him. In purple robes, Million Killer lifted his head to look at Yi Chen, who was in the air. He shouted coldly, "Mad Southern Yi, how dare you come to our Martial Alliance? Who are you?" Yi Chen stood in the air and looked at him in a condescending manner like a god. "I don't want to talk to a nameless dog. Who are you?" "I'm the Deputy Chief of the Martial Alliance, Million Killer. Reminder, please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. Recommended reading." Million Killer stood with his arms behind his back, looking cold. He peeped at Yi Wuxuang, who was next to Yi Chen by instinct. His expression turned grim a little. Clearly, even he did not expect Yi Wuxuang to come with Yi Chen. "Million Killer?" Yi Chen scoffed in disdain. "You bunch of trash isn't enough for me to kill. Get your chief to come out and die now." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone burst into an uproar. "Arrogant brat, die!" An old man who was standing behind Million Killer suddenly shouted. Energy exploded and turned into a giant green sword. The giant sword charged at Yi Chen directly with a whistling sound. The next moment, a sword gleam bloomed in Yi Wuxuang's hand. The sword gleam broke the giant green sword directly. The old man felt the scene before him shake violently, and his vision began to turn upside down. He suddenly saw his own neck. It was very neat, as if it had been cut off by a sharp weapon. He also saw everyone looking at him with a horrified expression. "Where is my head? Why are they looking at me like that? I'm dead?" This was his last thought before he died. Bang! His head rolled to the ground. His eyes were wide open, filled with bewilderment and disbelief, as if he had died with a grievance. The entire place was dead silent. Everyone stared blankly at this scene with their eyes wide open. Even the 10 people, including Million Killer, were no exception. The old man earlier was a martial Dao master. He was considered a powerhouse in the Martial Alliance. However, he had died out of nowhere. Dead? At that moment, nobody dared to speak, let alone attack Yi Chen first. After all, there was a bloody example before them. Million Killer's face twitched a little. He said after taking a deep breath in, "Mad Southern Yi, do you know that what you're doing today is challenging the Martial Alliance's dignity? Are you going against the entire Martial Alliance?" At this point, he finally believed in Yi Wushuang's ability. It was no wonder that the old monk from Miin Temple, Rinpoche, was killed with a swing of his sword. Yi Chen smirked lightly. A creepy smile appeared at the corner of his lip. "Your Martial Alliance has been targeting me time and time again. You sent people to assassinate my wife and kidnapped my parents by force. So what if I'm challenging you? So what if I'm your enemy? My Martial Alliance represents the entire martial Dao world in China. Are you going against the entire world?" Million Killer's veins were bulging, and he was enraged. "So what if I'm going against the entire world? If anyone dares to go against me, I, Yi Chen, will kill everyone in the world." Yi Chen's eyes were cold as he took a step forward. A shocking killing intent exploded from his body, covering heaven and earth completely. Today, no one in the Martial Alliance will be spared. His extremely cold voice echoed through the entire Martial Alliance. Everyone's expression changed at the same time. "Mad Southern Yi, do you really think you're invincible? Today, the Martial Alliance will be your battlefield." Million Killer's body shook intensely. Subsequently, more than 10 terrifying auras exploded from the 10 people behind him. The auras shot into the sky. Their auras tore the sky apart and shook the sky. 8 Guardian Elders, get into the 8 Immortals formation. As Million Killer shouted, 8 old silhouettes leaped into the air. The 8 old figures instantly turned into 8 afterimages and leapt into the air. Their auras were actually completely linked at this moment. Reminder: please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. Recommended reading: they were one and complemented each other. The 8 of them surrounded Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang directly. As energy exploded, 8 energy of different colors connected into a circle, cutting off the duo's path of retreat completely. 8 Immortals formation. The 8 of them shouted at the same time. The auras on their bodies were getting more and more intense, and the killing intent in their eyes was getting more and more intense. They knew very well that Yi Wushuang alone could kill the old monk Rinpoche from the Miin Temple with a swing of his sword. It meant that Yi Wushuang and Yi Chen's individual combat strength surpassed theirs completely. They were no match for them if they fought them alone, so they had to work together. No matter how intense the 8 of their auras were, Yi Chen remained calm and stood proudly. However, a gleam of surprise flashed through his eyes. 8 Immortals formation? He realized that the 8 of them had auras that were no weaker than the old monk who had died under Yi Wushuang's sword earlier. As the 8 of them worked together, their auras were majestic. They gave off an invincible vibe. "Mad Southern Yi, the 8 people in front of you are the Martial Alliance's Guardian Elders. Each of them is at the peak of the innate stage, and the 8 Immortals formation is a formation that the Martial Alliance has studied for many years. When it's activated at full force, even a Martial Dao Venerable would have to retreat. Therefore, all of you must die today." Million Killer's expression was grim and cold. He was secretly proud of himself. In reality, the formation came from Shang Santian. No matter if it was defense or attack, it was invincible. Throughout the hundreds of years, the Martial Alliance had encountered countless dangers. They had relied on the formation to survive each time and even killed their enemies. Therefore, to him, even if Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang worked together, they were no match for the 8 of them. "Mad Southern Yi, let's see what you're capable of today. Let's see if the rumors are true." The 8 of them shouted as energy exploded. They moved and charged at Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang, who were surrounded at the same time. As they moved, the circle before them shrunk rapidly, blocking Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang's way of retreat. Yi Chen glared at the 8 of them expressionlessly. He was like a god looking down on the world. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Why should I, Yi Chen, be afraid of trash like you? You're nothing but ants. I'll kill you guys like chickens within 10 steps. P.S. Today's update is over. Sorry for the long wait. I'm begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Chapter 263. Arrogant Junior. I'll show you how powerful the Martial Alliance is today. The 8 guardian elders of Martial Alliance extended their palms at the same time. Follow? A dream? Calm. The vital energy around was sucked dry. 6 palm prints consolidated in the air and turned into a materialized giant hand that covered the sky. It slammed at Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang's heads. That huge hand was like an evil dragon dancing in the wind, wanting to devour people. It tore the surrounding air into pieces, and a huge force enveloped the earth. Meanwhile, everyone on the ground couldn't help but hold their breaths as they stared at the giant handprint with widened eyes. They could only feel their hearts trembling. Million Killer sneered. This was the power of the 8 Immortals C-crossing formation. When 8 people used it, their energy would fuse together, increasing their strength by 3 times. Even he, the Vice Guild Master, had to retreat. Yi Wushuang stood next to Yi Chen with a cold expression. He was like a sharp sword as he watched the 8 of them quietly. Following a flash of lightning, the great thunder sword on his back let out a sword cry. The great thunderclap sword was unsheathed. One sword breaking all techniques. Yi Wushuang held the great thunder sword as sword intent shot into the sky. He took a step forward and swung his sword. Pucci! A dazzling sword light like a thunderbolt directly met the huge palm print, leaving a sword mark that was dozens of meters long and several meters wide. Just this one strike. Countless people felt as if their minds were being sucked in. It was as if there was only this sword in the entire world. Boom! With a loud noise, the huge handprint was suddenly destroyed by the sword light. The sword light did not slow down at all. The next moment, 3 of the 8 guardian elders were struck by the sword light, and their bodies were immediately split into 2. The 6 halves of their bodies quickly fell to the ground. What? Million Killer, who had been watching from the side, cried out involuntarily. His face was filled with shock. The remaining 5 Martial Alliance elders staggered and retreated quickly. The shock in their eyes was no less than Million Killer's. One of them exclaimed, how is this possible? At this moment, the entire world was deathly silent. Countless people looked at this scene with pale faces. Although they knew that Yi Wushuang had killed the old monk from the Mian temple with a single swing of his sword, they did not expect him to be so powerful. Just one strike. That one strike had broken through the 8 guardian elders' giant hand seals and killed 3 of them in a row? Where did this monster come from? Isn't he a little too terrifying? Compared to their horror, Yi Wushuang's expression remained the same as he stood quietly in midair. That was Yi Wushuang, that was a swordsman. Not arrogant, not rash, pure. In his eyes, there was no technique that could not be broken with one sword. If there was, then he would use 2 swords. This was the one sword to break all things. Yi Chen glanced at him as if he was complimenting him. He then lifted his eyes to take a good look at Million Killer and the rest. He scoffed, so, this is the Martial Alliance's 8 Immortals formation? I don't think so. Today you will all die. His voice fell. He charged out all of a sudden. He was so fast that even his afterimage could not be seen. Within the blink of an eye, he appeared behind the 5 guardian elders. The 5 of them had goosebumps all over their bodies. The first elder, who was the most powerful among them, had his eyelids twitching. All of a sudden, he felt a huge palm pressing on his shoulder. Kacha! The first elder's entire arm was squeezed into a bloody mist. He could not help but shriek as he fell from the sky onto the ground. The first one. Yi Chen's cold voice came. Die. The second elder was frightened again and again. He subconsciously made a horizontal swing in the air. His right leg suddenly spread out, and a green chi appeared on his leg. This kick completely shattered the air. That kick of his could usually pierce through a tank. Even an ordinary martial Dao Grand Master would be kicked to death by it. However, Yi Chen stood still. He smirked and threw a punch out. There was no fluctuation of supernatural power at all. He charged at the second elder's chest with pure physical strength. Bang! That punch pierced through the second elder's chest directly. Subsequently, he exploded and turned into blood that splattered into the sky. The second one. Yi Chen glared at the remaining 3 people coldly. Everyone stared blankly at this scene. They had already forgotten to breathe, and they could only feel their minds shaking. Yi Wuxuang had killed 3 of the most powerful guardian elders in the martial alliance with a swing of his sword. Subsequently, Yi Chen had killed 2 of them. What he said earlier was true. "I'll kill you guys like chickens within 10 steps. Million Killer was furious. The remaining 3 guardian elders were scared out of their wits now that 5 of them had died one after another. One of them could not help but scream in rage, "Deputy Chief, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?" As soon as he was done speaking, a purple silhouette shot up into the sky from the ground. Die, Mad Southern Yi! It was Million Killer who attacked. An earth-shattering energy storm charged at Yi Chen like a tornado. Just this pressure alone made countless people subconsciously prostrate themselves on the ground with excited expressions on their faces. The deputy chief had attacked. Now Yi Chen could no longer be arrogant. Even the remaining 3 guardian elders were no exception. They knew Million Killer's ability very well. Sensing the aura on Million Killer, the unparalleled sword, who was standing aside, looked serious. He was going to attack at that moment. Divine Punch created in 33 days. The 6th form, Quake Hammer. As an extremely cold voice was heard, Yi Chen threw a punch at by Yiwen who was charging at him. Subsequently, a golden fist shadow smashed down from the sky. It was approximately 30 meters long and looked like a red sun that was falling. Million Killer's expression changed. He shouted and threw a punch with all his might. Clearly, he wanted to take Yi Chen's punch. The golden fist shadow sliced through the sky and landed on Million Killer's fist accurately. Bang! A tsunami-like energy wave swept through the entire ground. The ground shook intensely as if an earthquake was coming. Countless rocks were blown into the air and crushed into dust. The people closed their eyes immediately when they saw that. When they opened their eyes again, the expression on their faces froze. Subsequently, it was replaced by endless fear. Half of the square on the ground was gone. It was replaced by a gigantic bottomless pit. Million Killer and the remaining 3 guardian elders were nowhere to be seen. They seemed to have vanished into thin air. At that moment, the entire martial alliance fell into dead silence. Countless people's faces turned pale. How long had it been since Yi Chen and Yi Wuxuang attacked? The 8 guardian elders and the deputy chief of the martial alliance had died just like that? At that moment, nobody dared to look at the 2 silhouettes in the air. Mad Southern Yi lived up to his name. He defeated the entire martial alliance on his own and killed masters like he was killing chickens. Who in the entire martial alliance could stop him? Countless people shuddered. Yi Chen stood with his arms behind his back. He looked at the stone tower before him in a condescending manner. His eyes were deep as he smiled lightly. "You can still hold it in after watching for so long?" Chapter 264. Yi Chen looked at the stone tower that was 100 meters away. A monstrous killing intent exuded from his body. It spread toward the stone tower like an ocean. As soon as he was done speaking, everyone looked at the stone tower immediately. Many of the martial alliance disciples were stunned at first. Subsequently, they seemed to have recalled something, and they had a fervent expression on their faces. Yi Wuxuang raised his brows slightly as coldness flashed through his eyes. After a moment of silence, a calm voice came from the stone tower. "Mad Southern Yi? Don't you think what you've done today is a little too much?" The voice was as soft as a trickle of water. However, it sounded extremely majestic, like the majestic ocean. Too much. Yi Chen smirked. Since you can't control your people, naturally I'll do it. However, the price is death. How dare you? A scoff came out of the stone tower. Subsequently, a stream of light shot out of the stone tower. As if the stars were moving, the stream of light turned into a silhouette in the air. It was a middle-aged man in black. However, he had white hair and a mediocre appearance. He had no aura at all, giving people the feeling that he was an ordinary person. However, as he stood in the air, almost everyone could not help but lower their heads. A suffocating pressure surged within them. It was a pressure that came from deep within their souls. At that moment, almost all of the Martial Alliance members knelt on the ground uncontrollably. They looked horrified. Chief. A hoarse voice came. A clumsy silhouette crawled out of the giant pit that Yi Chen had created earlier. The person's hair was messy and his face was covered in blood. The people gasped. The reason being that it was Million Killer. He was still alive. Million Killer struggled to stand up from the ground. He knelt on one knee at the silhouette in the air and clasped his fists with respect on his face. Chief, I'm useless. Everyone lifted their heads to look at the silhouette. Chief. He's the chief of the Martial Alliance who has been in closed-door cultivation for decades and has never shown himself. Sikong Ao. Greetings, Chief. At that moment, everyone from the Martial Alliance knelt onto the ground. They exclaimed like a tsunami. Yi Wushuang took a good look at him and said, Brother, this person is very powerful. Yi Chen nodded lightly as a gleam flashed through his eyes. This person is the Martial Alliance's leader, Sikong Ao? His ability was indeed great. He was even more powerful than Bai Zhanyuan. Faced with the voices of the crowd, Sikong Ao did not say a word. It was as if he did not hear anything as he walked over step by step from midair above the stone tower. That's right, he was walking. He was walking as if he was walking on flat ground. There wasn't a single ripple of energy coming from his body. He wasn't like Million Killer and the others, who used their energy to jump around. He walked very slowly, but with every step he took, it was as if he was stepping on the entire world. Sikong Ao stopped walking slowly when he was less than 50 steps away from Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang. He stared at Yi Chen with his pair of aged eyes. Mad Southern Yi, although I've been in closed-door cultivation, I've still heard of your name. Sikong Ao spoke slowly. I also know that you're number 1 on the Heaven leaderboard and you're even known as the number 1 in China. However, that's not what you have to barge into my Martial Alliance and kill our elders. Hearing this, Yi Chen smirked. What? You've allowed your Martial Alliance to go against me time and time again, assassinate my wife, and capture my parents. Now, I'm not allowed to come here to ask for an explanation? What kind of **T logic is that? Killing intent filled his eyes as he spoke to this point. Sikong Ao shook his head lightly and grabbed at a house beneath him. At that moment, he grabbed an old silhouette. It was Feng Kuai. Ever since Yi Chen severed his arm, Feng Kuai had been resting on the bed. He had heard everything that happened outside. He thought the chief would attack Yi Chen as soon as he appeared. Never had he thought that Sikong Ao would grab him through the air. Feng Kuai looked extremely terrified as he thought to this point. Chief. Shut up. Sikong Ao scoffed and looked at Yi Chen. Mad Southern Yi, I've found out that he's the one who made our Martial Alliance your enemy. I can hand him over to you today, but you have to leave with your people. The crowd gasped as soon as he was done speaking. Disbelief was written all over their faces. Never had they thought that Sikong Ao would do that. Feng Kuai almost passed out. Yi Chen smirked as he met Sikong Ao's gaze. Feng Kuai hated Yi Chen for killing Yuan Bupo. Indeed, he was the culprit who caused the situation that happened today. However, it would be a lie to say that the Martial Alliance and Sikong Ao had no idea what Feng Kuai had done. Those people did not take Yi Chen seriously since the beginning. They thought that Yi Chen could not threaten them, so they turned a blind eye to Feng Kuai's actions. However, the Martial Alliance panicked a little when Yi Chen and the Jade Dragon Snow Mountain killed the three masters. They were shocked by Yi Chen's ability. Although things had come to this, the Martial Alliance had no intention of reconciling with Yi Chen. Instead, they wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife. Therefore, there were more and more conflict. Eventually, they sent the Ku Rong old men, unquestionable Jian, and the rest to the Imperial Wind Pavilion to kill Yi Chen. Both parties were on opposite sides now. That was the reason why Yi Chen did not kill Feng Kuai. Instead, he asked him to return to the Martial Alliance to deliver the message. Not only did he want to kill Feng Kuai, but he also wanted to destroy the Martial Alliance. Yi Chen chuckled softly as he thought to this point. He said in disdain, "What? Are you scared?" Impudent. Anger flashed through Sikong Ao's eyes upon noticing that Yi Chen did not know what was good for him. "Why would I be afraid of you? I just don't want to kill you, a genius from China, over something insignificant. A small matter." Yi Chen smirked. "You sent someone to assassinate my wife and kidnapped my parents. Do you think that's a small matter?" His face was grim. "To you, it's a small matter, but to me, it's a big matter. Cut the crap. You'll die today, and the Martial Alliance will be destroyed." As soon as he finished speaking, he looked coldly at Feng Kuai, who was in Sikong Ao's hand, and a mocking smile appeared on the corner of his lips. "But before that, I have to give you a big present." His voice fell. Feng Kuai, who was in Sikong Ao's hand, suddenly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. The blood mist splattered all over Sikong Ao's body, and he didn't even have the time to scream. It was the spiritual power whirlpool that Yi Chen had left in Feng Kuai's body earlier. With a thought, Feng Kuai's body would explode. Countless people stared blankly at this scene. On the other hand, Million Killer couldn't hide the cold smile on his face. Mad Southern Yi! How dare he reject the chief's request? He even killed Feng Kuai before him. "You're seeking death." As expected, Sikong Ao's face gradually turned gloomy and cold. The heavens and earth were filled with dense killing intent. "Mad Southern Yi, you're seeking death." Chapter 265. As soon as Sikong Ao said the word, "Dream Follower," the atmosphere around cooled down as if the temperature had dropped by tens of degrees. One could not help but feel their scalp tingle as chills ran down their spines. Suddenly, an extremely vast force condensed in Sikong Ao's hand. A force that caused even Million Killer, who was below, to tremble in fear, quickly spread out. Bang! Sikong Ao threw a punch out. There were no fancy moves at all. A fist shadow tore through the sky at an extremely shocking speed and charged at Yi Chen and Sikong Ao hard. The fist shadow shot across the sky. The air exploded wherever it passed. The attack was as fast as lightning, and it was impossible to dodge at all. Clang! Yi Wushuang's expression turned serious. He took a step out and swung the great thunder sword first. A dazzling sword gleam charged at the fist shadow as soon as he swung his sword. Bang! Yi Wushuang's sword chi was crushed by the fist shadow. The fist shadow did not slow down at all and eventually landed hard on him. Bang! Yi Wushuang flew backward at that moment. There was a pale expression on his handsome face when he finally managed to stand still. Drip! A drop of blood dripped from the corner of his lips onto the ground. Subsequently, he spat a mouthful of blood out. The blood turned into a bloody mist that was glaring and terrifying. He was injured. Seeing that Sikong Ao had injured Yi Wushuang with a single punch, Million Killer was the first to smile in pride. "Chief is invincible." A series of cheers followed. "Chief is invincible." Yi Wushuang wiped the blood at the corner of his lips and walked to Yi Chen again. He looked at Sikong Ao in determination, but his hand that was holding the sword was shaking. Unparalleled sword, how did it feel? Sikong Ao stood with his arms behind his back, looking cold. "I admit that you're a genius that's hard to come by in 100 years. On top of that, you're a sword Dao genius. Regular martial Dao masters aren't your match. It's unfortunate that you've encountered me. Sikong Ao shook his head lightly as his clothes fluttered in the wind. I've been in closed-door cultivation for decades. How can I be an ordinary martial Dao master? I'm only one step away from becoming a martial Dao venerable. To put it bluntly, no one in China is my match. Mad Southern Yi, unparalleled sword, what right do you have to fight me? At this point, the aura on his body exploded in an instant, like a black cloud pressing down on a city, oppressive, suffocating, and heavy. Countless people's expressions changed. At this moment, in their eyes, Sikong Ao was no different from a god. Million Killer was no exception. However, Yi Wushuang's expression remained cold as he forced himself to stand behind Yi Chen. The great thunder sword in his hand let out a series of sword cries, as if he wanted to continue fighting Sikong Ao. At this moment, a hand was placed on his shoulder. Step aside. I'll chop off his head and offer it to your sword. Yi Chen chuckled softly and secretly inserted spiritual energy into Sikong Ao's body to heal him. Subsequently, he took a step out and shook his head lightly while looking at Sikong Ao. Sikong Ao, is this your true ability? If so, you won't be able to escape death today. Moreover, you're just a half-step martial venerable. It's not like I've never killed one before. You're no exception. Yi Chen smirked as he spoke to this point. Sikong Ao's eyes turned cold as soon as he said that. Sikong Ao's gaze gradually turned cold as his bone-chilling voice, mixed with dense killing intent, shook the heavens and earth. Since you insist on seeking death, I'll grant your wish. His body shook as soon as he was done speaking. His body suddenly shook, and in an instant, the air between the heavens and earth began to tremble. Thousand-fold heart-shattering palm. Sikong Ao hovered in the air as his shout was like thunder. An extremely powerful aura surged out of his palm like a thunderstorm. A gigantic palm print slammed toward Yi Chen's head. His speed was extremely fast. Bang! At the same time, a terrifying wind swept everywhere. A shockingly strong wind swept in all directions. The ground of the entire martial alliance trembled at that moment. Then, it exploded at the same time. Countless people were shocked as they retreated at the same time. However, just as they turned their gazes over, they were shocked to see that Yi Chen had no intention of retreating in the face of the chief's attack. Instead of retreating, he advanced and quickly charged forward. Gasp! Is this guy seeking death? He's too arrogant. The people gasped at the moment. Even Million Killer's attack was the most powerful one that Sikong Ao had ever seen in his life. Even he had to retreat 90 feet, yet Yi Chen wanted to take it head-on. What else could it be if he was not seeking death? Yi Chen ignored the people's exclamations. He seemed to have turned into a puff of smoke. He walked in a strange footwork, and his body was unpredictable. Ninth Heaven U steps. As Yi Chen took one step after another, shadows appeared behind him. Within the blink of an eye, 9 shadows appeared like 9 clones. I've never been afraid of anyone with my body. Break! Yi Chen's deep growl was like rumbling thunder. The aura on his body was extremely ferocious as he threw a punch at Sikong Ao's thousand-fold heart-shattering palm directly. In the next second, the fist and the palm collided. With the two of them as the center, the air within a 1,000-meter radius was forcefully compressed and exploded. Meanwhile, the people standing on the ground felt the sky and the ground shake. Subsequently, they saw a storm that was filled with a destructive aura rumble in the air. At that moment, everyone was thrown out by the storm. Everyone was sent flying by the storm. Many of them spat out a mouthful of blood. Their pale faces were filled with shock. A low grunt was heard. Sikong Ao's body was thrown out and he retreated continuously. Clearly, he was affected by the impact. When everyone had their eyes on Yi Chen did not move at all. However, Yi Chen did not move at all. He stood proudly as if the exchange earlier did not hurt him at all. The entire martial alliance fell into silence as they watched. The entire martial alliance suddenly fell silent. Disbelief appeared in everyone's eyes. Mad Southern Yi actually took it on and even forced the chief to retreat. You managed to take my 1,000-fold heart-shattering palm? Sikong Ao's chest was heaving as he hovered in the air. There was shock on his face. He felt the vital energy and blood in his body rumbling as if they were going to explode. One must know that even Million Killer, a martial Dao master who had been famous for many years, would not stand a chance against his attack earlier. Yi Chen stood with his arms behind his back and smiled in a creepy manner. There was dense disdain in his smile. That's all the martial alliance chief can do. Sikong Ao was enraged. Just when he was going to speak, he saw Yi Chen looking at him coldly. What other techniques do you have? Use them all. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to do so in this lifetime. Sikong Ao's pupils shrunk when he heard what Yi Chen said. Sikong Ao's pupils shrunk. At that moment, he really sensed a dangerous aura from Yi Chen's body. P.S. I'm writing 2 more chapters. Chapter 266. The Genius Nanny in the City, Chapter 266. Do you think you deserve to say thunder? City Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark, recommend this book, Chapter 266. Do you think you deserve to say thunder? 4th update. Great, very great. Mad Southern Yi, I've underestimated you. Sikong Ao's expression was gloomy as he narrowed his eyes. His gaze was filled with bewilderment, but more than that, it was filled with killing intent. This guy must not be allowed to live. He took a deep breath in after saying that. He shook all 10 of his fingers, and 10 mist-like energy surged out of each of his fingers. The 10 energy surges were as white as snow and as thin as hair. However, the moment they appeared, the entire air suddenly cooled down, and a bone-chilling aura was emitted from the 10 threads of strength chi. Everyone's pupils shrunk. There was fear in their eyes as they looked at the 10 white energy threads. Yi Chen stood proudly and scoffed. Sikong Ao, you're the martial alliance chief. When did you learn needlework? The so-called needlework was a woman's job of threading needles. Were the energy threads that Sikong Ao consolidated not equivalent to cotton threads? Mad Southern Yi, don't you dare! Sikong Ao's arms trembled once again, and countless white threads condensed from his fingers. Everyone was shocked to find out that the air around him had actually solidified, and had even turned into ice. Meanwhile, there was a bone-chilling chill in the air. Sikong Ao crossed his arms, and the countless white threads weaved into a huge white net in an extremely ingenious manner. The huge net fell from the sky and covered Yi Chen directly. Meanwhile, his hair was frozen at a speed that could be seen with the naked eye. Mad Southern Yi, how does my 1,000 trickeries lure taste? This is the frigid energy that I collected from the Arctic tundra. I've refined it for tens of thousands of days and nights. Sikong Ao laughed out loud. Yi Chen looked at the huge net on him. He wanted to break it, but he realized that the net was shrinking after being pressured. After the big net covered him, the chilly air froze his eyes, brows, mouth, and lower body. In the end, Yi Chen turned into an ice sculpture. Ha ha ha, Mad Southern Yi has been frozen by the chief. He has completely lost the ability to resist. The Alliance Master is invincible. It's fine when he doesn't make a move, but when he does, it's like a thunderbolt. It's too easy for him to kill Mad Southern Yi just like that. I suggest using a hammer to break the ice sculpture. That way, he'll turn into pieces. And please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, NBSP. All of the Martial Alliance disciples laughed out loud when they saw that. Pride filled their faces as if Yi Chen was already dead. The sound was piercing to the eyes. Sikong Ao threw his head back and laughed. Yi Wuxuang, who was far away, looked serious when he saw that. He held his sword and ran to Yi Chen, who had turned into an ice sculpture immediately. He seemed to want to save Yi Chen. However, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him and blocked his way. It was Sikong Ao. Unparalleled sword, Mad Southern Yi is dead. Why don't you surrender to me? I'll spare your life. Sikong Ao looked at Yi Wuxuang in mockery. Seeing that Yi Wuxuang did not move, Sikong Ao spoke again. I've no idea what's your relationship with Mad Southern Yi, but I think you're just friends. There's no need for you to die with him. At that moment, he heard a series of cracking noises. Suddenly, he heard a series of cracking sounds, as if a layer of ice was breaking, accompanied by the sound of water dripping onto the ground. He turned his head to look immediately. He saw a raging fire burning inside the ice sculpture that Yi Chen had turned into. Yi Chen turned into a man on fire directly. The fire was getting bigger and eventually, the ice sculpture melted slowly. Streams of water were dripping down quickly. How is that possible? The smile on Sikong Ao's face froze. Sikong Ao, do you think you can trap me with that technique? That's just wishful thinking. Yi Chen, who was in the ice sculpture, said slowly, True Samadhi fire, burn the heavens and melt the earth. Bang! The ice sculpture exploded. At the same time, the fire on Yi Chen's body swept through the air. It lit up thousands of meters, and the scorching air wave filled heaven and earth. Sikong Ao looked at each other in shock and retreated immediately. Yi Chen stood in the sea of fire with his arms behind his back. He walked one step after another like the god of fire had arrived. Countless people watched that blankly. They were dumbstruck, and they were secretly shocked. Such a technique had surpassed the level of a human. A smile appeared on Yi Wuxuang's cold face. He seemed relaxed. How is that possible? How is that possible? Sikong Ao's expression finally changed drastically. Not only was Yi Chen not afraid of his 1,000 trickeries, but he had even created fire to break his 1,000 trickeries. Yi Chen walked toward him one step after another and shook his head lightly. I'm very disappointed in you. From today onward, the martial alliance will cease to exist. Ah! Sikong Ao, who was enraged, suddenly laughed out loud. Yi Chen frowned slightly. What are you laughing at? I heard that you're called Master Yi. You can control lightning and now fire. I think you're a spell master too, but do you think you're the only one? Sikong Ao said while smiling. Congratulations, you've successfully forced me to use my technique. In reality, apart from being a half-step martial venerable, I'm also a spell master. Spell master? Yi Chen was surprised. You don't know that you're a spell master? Sikong Ao frowned slightly. He smiled proudly after noticing that Yi Chen did not look like he was faking it. In this world, there aren't only ancient martial artists, but there are also spell masters. If ancient martial artists rely on their physical strength, spell masters rely on spells. So, you're a dual cultivator of spells and martial arts? The shock in Yi Chen's eyes grew. He did not expect there to be a spell master. Note, please rest your eyes when you read for a long time. Recommended reading. It's similar to cultivators. Sikong Ao smirked and took out a talisman. He then bit the tip of his tongue and spat a mouthful of blood onto the talisman. After absorbing his blood, the talisman released a glow that was as bright as day. Subsequently, it split into 8 beams of light and shot around the Martial Alliance mountain gate. Meanwhile, his skin began to shrivel and his face looked haggard. He looked like he had aged 10 years in an instant. Sikong Ao stomped his foot hard and shouted. 8 beams of light shot out from every corner of the Martial Alliance mountain gate. They shot into the sky. Mad Southern Yi, have a taste of my technique. Martial Alliance Mountain Guarding Formation, activate. Borrow the 9 heavens divine lightning. Sikong Ao shouted with all of his strength. Lightning, come. As soon as he was done speaking, Yi Chen's expression changed. Bang! Thunder rumbled above the clouds. Countless dark clouds gathered and were extremely heavy. Soon, the sky above everyone was covered in dark clouds as if ink had been splashed on them. Lightning flashed through the clouds. Everyone knelt onto the ground by instinct. Everyone knelt onto the ground by instinct. Heavenly might. The majestic heavenly might. They could not believe that the chief could perform it. Mad Southern Yi, rumor has it that you can control lightning. Unfortunately, I can too. Let's see who's more powerful today. Sikong Ao could not stop laughing hysterically. Although he said that, his eyes were filled with disdain. The formation had existed since the martial alliance was established. The celestial master of Mount Longhu had put in a lot of effort to set it up. He had not used it for hundreds of years. To fight Yi Chen now, he, Sikong Ao, had used up all of his trump cards. So what if Mad Southern Yi could control lightning? To him, how could that little bit of lightning compare to what he was doing now? Despair, Mad Southern Yi. Sikong Ao could not stop laughing. However, in the next second, he realized that Yi Chen was looking at him like he was an idiot. You want to compete with me in lightning method? I can't believe it. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. He did not know whether to laugh or to cry. Subsequently, he said all of a sudden, however, do you think you deserve to say lightning? Chapter 267. Evil Stay-at-Home Dad in the City. Chapter 267. Thunder Comes? Disperse for this daddy. 5th update. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 267. Thunder Comes? Disperse for this daddy. 5 p.m. For some reason, Sikong Ao felt slightly uneasy when he saw Yi Chen's smile. He smirked by instinct and said, I know you can control lightning, but this lightning guiding formation was set up by Mount Longhu's celestial master when the martial alliance was founded. When it's activated, 8 bolts of lightning will descend. At this point, he paused and the sneer on his face became even more intense. If you can control them, I will immediately commit suicide in front of you. The muffled thunder in the sky continued. Yi Chen lifted his head to look up. He saw that the lightning in the clouds was getting more intense, followed by a series of muffled explosions. Poochie! 8 bolts of lightning that were as thick as a baby's arm descended from the clouds all of a sudden. They intertwined and charged at Yi Chen. When Sikong Ao saw this, he took out another talisman and retreated far away. The talisman in his hand was drawn by the celestial master from Mount Longhu who had created the formation. Being able to prevent the person who activated the formation from being attacked by lightning was also the reason why he had the confidence to activate the formation. After retreating to a safe area, Sikong Ao smirked and waved at Yi Chen. Goodbye, Mad Southern Yi. The rest looked at Yi Chen while gloating. They were standing far away, so they did not have to worry about being struck by lightning at all. Seeing that the 8 bolts of lightning were getting closer and closer to him, Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Subsequently, he pointed at the sky and shouted, Scatter! His roar directly overshadowed the muffled thunder above the clouds and shook the entire world. Do you think you're the god of thunder, dispersing just like that? Million Killer could not help but laugh from afar. However, the next moment, the smile on his face suddenly froze. As soon as Yi Chen was done speaking, the 8 bolts of lightning that were about to strike Yi Chen seemed to have stopped as if they were frightened by something. Then, in front of everyone's dumbfounded expressions, the 8 bolts of lightning changed direction and quickly flew into the clouds. Their speed was more than 3 times faster than before. In an instant, the dark clouds and lightning that had been hovering in the sky disappeared without a trace, and the clear sky was restored once again. It was as if the scene just now was just a dream. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, / all of a sudden. Sikong Ao was stunned. Million Killer was stunned. Everyone was so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out of their socket. F***ck your mother. It really dispersed. How is this possible? An extremely sharp voice broke the dead silence. Sikong Ao looked at Yi Chen in disbelief. Why did the lightning disappear just because you said so? That's because I'm Master Yi who can control lightning. Didn't you already know that? Yi Chen chuckled. In fact, he was a celestial dharch, and there was Emperor's might on his body. The more his strength recovered, the stronger the Emperor's might. Furthermore, the 8 thunder gods were his subordinate. The god of thunder and the goddess of lightning didn't have the right to speak in front of him. Therefore, they wouldn't dare to strike him even if they had 100 guts. Therefore, he released his Emperor's might on purpose. The 8 bolts of lightning were scared off as soon as they sensed him. Moreover, he had the body of an immortal. So what if he was really struck by lightning? It was no different from tickling him. Sikong Ao had the urge to vomit blood upon hearing what Yi Chen said. You're a freak, a freak. He dared not take the 8 bolts of lightning earlier, but he was scared off by what Yi Chen said. Most importantly, the martial alliance formation could only be used once. You want to compete with me in lightning method? You're playing with fire, young man. Mockery appeared at the corner of Yi Chen's lips. Subsequently, he said while smiling, I'll show you what real lightning is before you die, you piece of trash. Lightning, come. He lifted his arm and pointed at his mouth. Lightning, come. Almost at that moment, the clouds that were initially clear turned into dark clouds in the blink of an eye. Thunderclouds gathered. Rumble. As thunder rumbled, a lightning bolt that was as thick as a bucket struck from the dark clouds like a lightning python. The lightning bolt charged at Sikong Ao, who was far away. No. The expression on Sikong Ao's face did not change at all. He released a furious roar of indignation by instinct. Mad Southern Yi, you can't kill me. Shang Santian is behind my martial alliance. If you bang, the lightning fell. He was killed. The dignified martial alliance chief, Sikong Ao, who had a combat ability that was above the peak of China, ended up like this. The lightning dispersed, and the clouds retreated. The sky turned bright again, illuminating the extremely horrified faces. Each of them was so pale that there was no color in them at all. At that moment the entire place fell into dead silence. Nobody spoke, and nobody dared to speak. Everyone looked at Yi Chen blankly. He retreated the lightning with a single word and summoned lightning with a wave of his hand. Was he a god? God, spare me! Spare me! Nobody knew who screamed and knelt onto the ground first. He kowtowed to Yi Chen like he was pounding garlic. A series of people followed suit. They were dying to knock their brains out. God, spare us. This has nothing to do with us. Yi Chen looked down at them in a condescending manner. Yi Wuxuang held the great thunder sword in an attempt to kill all of them. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Forget it. I'll just kill the leader. Reminder, please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading. Million Killer snapped back to his senses. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He ran far away while ignoring the injuries on his body. I'll kill him. Yi Wuxuang chased after him with his sword after saying that. Yi Chen landed on the ground and saw hundreds of people kneeling around him. Among them, there were tens of people with rather powerful auras. All of them had a cultivation base of illuminating pulse. Moreover, they were hiding among the crowd and seemed to be vaguely hostile toward Yi Chen. Yi Chen flicked his finger, and a fireball leaped out. It turned into tens of sparks and landed on them. As the rest watched in horror, all of them turned into black smoke. Not even their ashes were left behind. Don't move if you don't want to die. Yi Chen looked at the survivors coldly. His expression was extremely cold. I only kill those who are hostile to me. If any of you don't like me, show it to them as soon as possible so that you can accompany them on the road to hell. As soon as he said that, everyone buried their heads in the ground, suppressing the thoughts in their minds. Seeing this, a black streamer appeared in Yi Chen's hand. It was the 100-soul streamer. Currently, he was still short of dozens of souls to complete it. Thinking of this, he picked up the 100-soul banner and leapt into the air, waving it at the corpses on the ground. For a time, countless wisps of black gas floated out from the corpses, reflecting the resentful faces. The black gas was completely absorbed into the 100-soul banner. As for Sikong Ao, his soul had already been destroyed by the lightning, so it was impossible for his soul to exist. What a pity! I shouldn't have struck him with lightning. Yi Chen shook his head. Sikong Ao's strength was profound, and the resentment of his soul after his death was also stronger than others. If it was placed in the 100-soul banner, it would greatly increase the might of the 100-soul banner. He looked at the black-clad young man closest to him and asked, "Where's the Martial Alliance's treasure vault? Bring me there." Naturally, it was the right thing to do after killing someone. That was the unchanging truth. At that moment, a few silhouettes leaped from the foot of the mountain. Each of them had a powerful aura, and the one leading them was Yang Junlin. Yang Junlin had a drastic change of expression when he realized that Sikong Ao was dead. "Venerable Yi, did you really kill Sikong Ao? You're in big trouble. P.S. From tomorrow onward, I'll update 2 chapters every day at 12:30 p.m. and 3 chapters every night. I'm looking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 268. I caused great trouble? Yi Chen lifted his head to look at Yang Junlin and frowned. Does the government have something against me for killing Sikong Ao? That's secondary. With a dream a WW Suameng. Calm Yang Junlin smiled bitterly and said, "Do you still remember what I told you before? The Martial League is from the upper 3 heavens. It's all right." Yi Chen shook his head lightly. "If Shang Santian really comes looking for me, Yi Chen, will fight them anytime." After saying that, he got someone to bring him to the Martial Alliance's treasure vault immediately. The Martial Alliance had been established for so many years, so they must have collected some stuff. What if there was something he could use in there? Yi Chen left without a care in the world. Yang Junlin sighed to himself. On the other hand, Yan Nanfei, Li Yunxiao, and the rest who were behind him kept looking at the traces of the battle. When they saw the huge crater on the ground and the mess around, they looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They were also experts, so they could naturally infer the scene of the battle from the traces on the scene. Pang Yuanqing asked in disbelief, "Is Sikong Ao really dead?" He asked the question that was on everyone's mind. After all, Sikong Ao was known as the legend of China several decades ago. He had been in closed-door cultivation for the past several decades, and no one knew how strong he had become. It was easier said than done for Yi Chen to kill him. Li Yunxiao shook his head and walked toward the many Martial Alliance members in front of him. After asking a few people, not only did he learn about the outcome of the incident, but he also learned about the process. All of a sudden, the few of them inhaled sharply at the same time. They looked extremely shocked. All of them were shocked by Yi Chen's technique of repelling the divine lightning and summoning it casually. Yang Junlin could not help but exclaim, "Supreme Yi is indeed Supreme Yi. He cultivates both magic and martial arts, and he's even an expert of the mighty god plane." The realms of spellmasters were entering the Tao and connecting the gods. Once they reached the entering the Tao realm, they could cultivate mystical qi and use it to attack their enemies. They could even control magical artifacts. Once they reached the connecting the gods realm, their techniques would be close to divine powers. At that moment, Yi Wushuang walked over slowly with a human head in his hand. He said nothing as he stood aside, secretly searching for Yi Chen. Yan Nanfei was stunned when he saw the head's facial features. He could not help but exclaim, "Million killer?" When Yi Chen arrived at the Martial Alliance's treasure vault, he realized that the door to the treasure vault was a stone door that weighed 1,000 kilograms. According to the Martial Alliance disciple who led the way, only Sikong Ao's key could open the stone door. However, Yi Chen did not care about that at all. Under the shocked gaze of the person leading the way, he lifted the stone door with his physical strength alone. What came into view was a stone room that occupied an area of about 500 square meters. Inside the stone room, there were many large boxes that were sealed, chained, and locked. Yi Chen scanned them with his divine consciousness and noticed that most of them were common items such as gold, silver, copper, and iron. There were even 5 big boxes of gold bars, which were the so-called yellow croakers. That's right, 5 chests of gold. In total, there were at least 500 caddies, which was 250 kilograms. According to the price of 350 yuan a gram, it was more than 80 million yuan in total. Yi Chen could not help but feel a little disappointed. However, when his gaze swept over the last 2 boxes, his furrowed brows suddenly relaxed. One of them contained many precious herbs, such as 1,000-year-old ginseng and 500-year-old Chinese knotweed. It was Yi Chen's first time seeing such precious herbs on Earth. Although they were all common items, it was better than nothing. Meanwhile, there were many bottles and jars in the other box. There were many medicinal pills in them, but the medicinal effects were not very powerful. With Yi Chen's insight, he could tell that those medicinal pills were for ancient martial artists. Their effects were basically to refine one's body and build one's foundation. The only thing that piqued his interest was that there were 3 pale yellow medicinal pills in one of the gourds. The medicinal effects were much more powerful than the rest. Yi Chen walked over and broke the lock on the box with one hand. He took out the gourd after opening the box and poured one of the pills into his palm. He studied it carefully. He came to a realization at that moment. It seemed like the 3 medicinal pills were the so-called breakthrough pills. The Martial Alliance had used them as a reward when they issued the kill order on him. This is great, but it's a pity that there are only 3 of them. Yi Chen secretly shook his head. He could tell at a glance that the so-called breakthrough pills were mainly for peak stage illuminating pulse people to break through to Martial Dao Master, which was beginner stage innate stage. It was pure nonsense for peak stage innate stage Martial Dao Masters to increase their cultivation base after consuming it. If that was possible, why would Sikong Ao stay until now? Although that was the case, there would definitely be a bloodbath if the 3 medicinal pills got out. Although Martial Dao Masters were nothing to Yi Chen, they were no different from super powerhouses to the rest. After all, many ancient martial artists could not break through to innate stage their entire lives. Naturally, the breakthrough pills were extremely precious. The first thing that came to Yi Chen's mind was to let his parents consume the medicinal pills. However, he dismissed that thought soon. The breakthrough pills had the best effect on illuminating pulse ancient martial artists. Meanwhile, his parents were ordinary people. If he were to consume it by force, their bodies would not be able to take it. Even if they could, they would be old and their vital energy and blood would be insufficient. It would be difficult for them to go far on the path of ancient martial arts. Moreover, Yi Chen was a cultivator. How could he let his parents walk the path of ancient martial arts? The troublesome thing was that his parents did not have a spiritual root, so they could not cultivate at the moment unless Yi Chen could refine the Qi repair pill to help his parents develop a spiritual root. Even in the cultivation world, the chaotic mending pill was an extremely rare item. How could it be that easy to refine? Yi Chen could not help but feel a strong sense of danger as he thought to this point. It seems like I'll have to recover my ability as soon as possible and look for the materials to refine the Qi repair pill as soon as possible. His parents were over 50 years old. With Yi Chen's current ability, the most he could let them live was 100 years old. That was under the condition that they had the longevity pill. If they did not become cultivators, they would not be able to escape the cycle of reincarnation 100 years later. Even Yi Chen, who was the heavenly emperor in his past life, could do nothing about it. As for feeding his parents the immortal pill so that they could ascend to the heavens, that was pure fantasy. It would be dangerous for an ordinary person to consume a normal spiritual pill, let alone an immortal pill. If they consumed it, it would be impossible for them to ascend to the heavens, but it was entirely possible for them to die. Yi Chen shook his head and waved his arm after getting rid of the distracting thoughts in his head. He put everything that was useful to him into his storage ring. That included the 5 boxes of gold bars. There was a total of 10 cubic meters of space in his storage ring. It was similar to a small house that was 3 meters long, wide, and tall. It was enough to store so many items. When he walked out of the treasure vault, Yang Junlin and the rest were still outside. Meanwhile, there were many young men and women in suits and ties next to them. Venerable Yi, let me introduce you to them. They're the people sent by the government. Yang Junlin smiled and said, now that all the experts, including Sikong Ao, are dead, the martial alliance only exists in name. To prevent chaos, the government has sent someone to take over temporarily. Do you have any objections? It doesn't matter. I've killed them and taken my revenge, anyway. You guys can do whatever you want. Yi Chen smiled calmly and left with Yi Wuxuang after saying that. Yi Chen smiled lightly. Chapter 269. Although the martial alliance was almost destroyed and the news of Sikong Ao's death was suppressed by the government on purpose, some people in the Chinese martial Dao world still felt that something was off. Sui_Meng. Some of them were like the old monk from Miyin Temple. After noticing martial alliance's unusual behavior, they became even more silent. In a remote mountain village in the west, an old farmer in his 50s was running frantically. Upon closer inspection, one could see that he was holding a red bra tightly in his hand. Behind the old farmer was a middle-aged man with a kitchen knife in each hand, cursing as he ran with a murderous aura. You with the surname Nyo, don't run if you have the guts. How dare you steal my wife's underwear? If I don't chop you to death today, my surname isn't Wang. Lao Wang, don't be rash. It's not what you think. Listen to my explanation. I didn't steal your wife's underwear. The wind blew it into my hands. The old farmer panted. Let me cut you a few times first before I explain. The middle-aged man chased after him relentlessly. The old farmer was furious. He passed by the middle-aged man's house and stared at the lingerie hanging on the drying pole in front of his house. A sudden gust of wind blew one of the red bras into his hands. When the middle-aged man saw this scene, he went back to the kitchen, grabbed 2 kitchen knives, and without saying a word, he wanted to cut him. It was as if he had an affair with his wife. Gritting his teeth, the old farmer sped up and left the middle-aged man in the dust. The middle-aged man spat on the ground and left angrily. This time, the old farmer sat on the ground. Just then, his phone rang and he hurriedly picked it up. A few seconds later, he hung up the phone. Shock flashed across his old face that was drenched in sweat from exhaustion earlier. Sikong Ao died in that brat's hands too? Interesting. One must know that Sikong Ao was only a step away from becoming a martial Dao venerable, and he was even a spell master. However, he was still killed by that Yi brat. Could it be that Yi brat has already become a martial Dao venerable? Thinking to there, a gleam flashed through the old farmer's cloudy eyes. If he really breaks through to a martial arts sovereign, should I go and meet him? A few seconds later, he shook his head. Forget it, I won't go. That brat Yi destroyed the Su family, but he didn't know that there's someone in the Su family who escaped. He later killed by Zhang Yuan from Shang Santian, and now he's killed Sikong Ao. He's considered a mortal enemy of Shang Santian. Yes, I'm not going. I still want to live for a few more years. What's the point of fighting and killing? I might as well go to the riverside to watch Cui Hua bathe, or to feel the bones of little girls and treat illnesses. That night, Yi Chen and Yi Wuxuang returned to Beijing. It was past 8 at night. His parents, Su Yuhan, and the rest were enjoying the cool breeze in the courtyard of the Imperial Wind Pavilion. The family was talking and laughing. Meng Meng, who was in Su Yuhan's embrace, would laugh from time to time, melting Yi Chen's cold heart completely. Yi Hai was rather upset to see Yi Chen. Where have you guys been? Why are you back so late? Dad, Wushuang and I went to meet a friend and had a meal. That's why we're late. I'm sorry, Yi Chen said the excuse that he had come up with earlier. Yi Hai's expression eased up, and he stopped asking. Meanwhile, Su Yuhan, who was standing aside, took a good look at Yi Chen. Naturally, she was smart enough to guess that Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang's trip this time was not as simple as having a meal. However, she could not say anything in front of her parents. Oh yeah, Xiaochen, your dad and I have decided to go back to Tianan tomorrow, Wu Lan said all of a sudden. Yi Chen got Yi Wushuang to sit down. He could not help but look at her. Mom? Why are you in such a hurry? Why don't you stay for a few more days? Moreover, wasn't our house bombed? It's an old house that was bombed. Don't you have a villa in Nine Dragons Bay? Your dad and I will move in when we get back. Wu Lan shook her head and said while smiling, the reason why your dad and I are in such a hurry to go back is that we're worried about our family. Our main reason is that we want to prepare for your and Yuhan's wedding. Mom, are you in too much of a hurry? Su Yuhan's cheeks flushed. Getting married was the most romantic thing for a woman, but it was also the most stressful and shy thing. I'm not in a hurry at all. Yi Hai smoked and said while shaking his head, choosing the date, contacting the wedding planner, purchasing the items, and notifying the relatives. There are many things to do. It's better to plan as soon as possible. He seemed to recall something as he spoke to this point. Oh yeah, are you guys planning to have a Western wedding or a Chinese wedding? Yuhan, you decide. Yi Chen looked at Su Yuhan by instinct and gave her the choice. To him, it did not matter whether it was a Chinese or a Western wedding. It was just a formality. He mainly wanted to give Su Yuhan a status through this. It was a man's responsibility. A Western wedding, Su Yuhan said while blushing. Wu Lan said while smiling, sure, Xiaochen. If it's a Western wedding, you'll have to propose and you'll need a diamond ring. You'll have to prepare that in advance. Got it, Mom. Yi Chen nodded lightly. The family chatted for a while. Yi Hai and Wu Lan had to catch a flight the next day, so they went to bed early. Before they left, Wu Lan carried Mingming, who had fallen asleep in Su Yuhan's embrace. After Yi Chen and Su Yuhan returned to their room, they lay on the bed quietly. They looked at each other and smiled sweetly. You're getting married? Are you happy? Do you have anything to say to me, your future husband? Yi Chen looked at her with a gentle gaze. Not yet. Su Yuhan rested her head on Yi Chen's chest. Her black, beautiful hair exuded a fragrance that ignited Yi Chen's lust completely. If not, we'll talk about it in the future. Yi Chen flipped over and pressed her under him. Not long after, the entire house was filled with an extremely stifled sound, which lasted for more than an hour before it dissipated. Su Yuhan's body was as soft as water after the pleasure. She curled into a ball in Yi Chen's embrace. Dummy, I tried it secretly today. Nothing happened. What did you try? Yi Chen was stunned. I tried it with a contraceptive, but nothing happened. Su Yuhan smacked him angrily and said while blushing, I heard that the test will be out in around half a month. It's normal that nothing happened. How can you be 100% sure? It's like buying a lottery ticket. Yi Chen said in between tears and laughter. Is there something wrong with my body? Should I go to the hospital for a checkup? She suddenly became nervous. Yi Chen held his head down and pecked her red lip. Don't scare yourself. If there's something wrong with you, how did Mingming come about? Su Yuhan was relieved. Yi Chen suddenly said, Oh yeah, there's something I need to tell you. Come to Longxi with me after Mom and Dad go back. Why are we going to Longxi? Su Yuhan looked at him in confusion. You'll know when the time comes. Yi Chen smiled mysteriously. The Ghost Rider sect mountain gate that Bai Zhanyuan found was in Longxi. Meanwhile, Su Yuhan had a pure Yin body and a dark spiritual root that was extremely rare in the cultivation world. It would be 100 times more difficult for her to step onto the path of cultivation compared to others. For ordinary people to step onto the path of cultivation, they must have a spiritual root. Only those with a spiritual root could sense the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. The spiritual root was basically categorized by the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The simpler the spiritual root, the faster the cultivation speed. Apart from the 5 elements, there were mutated spiritual root. For example, Yang Tian's son, Yang Hao, had a lightning spiritual root. There were also ice spiritual roots, wind spiritual roots, and so on. Such mutated spiritual roots were very rare. The so-called dark spiritual root was a spiritual root with a dark attribute. Such a spiritual root was even rarer than mutated spiritual root. It was a genius born to cultivate the Ghost Dao method, and they could only cultivate the Ghost Dao method. Meanwhile, not only did Su Yuhan have a dark spiritual root, but she also had a pure Yin body. The pure Yin body could only unleash its power after the seal was removed. If the Ghost Rider sect Mountain Gate really existed, it might be able to help Su Yuhan to remove the seal on her pure Yin body. It might even help Su Yuhan's cultivation. It was a quiet night. The next day, Yi Hai and his wife flew back to Tianan after breakfast. This time, Lin Tai escorted them personally. Yi Chen received a call from Old Chen as soon as he returned from the airport. "Little Yi, come to my place. I've found the geographical vein that you're looking for,"